one being like truly global educator by Global Leadership Awards on February 2, 2020. Asia's most prominent director for education by Global Excellence Lifestyle. Madhya Pradesh Ratan by Madhya Pradesh Press Club Bhopal. Pride of International Education Excellence Awards by Global Achievers Foundation Awards in 2015. Bharat Shiksha Ratan Award by Global Achievers Foundation for Excellence in 2014. Best Director Awards in the Indian Business School Awards in 2014 again, and Rajiv Gandhi Education Excellence Award by Indian Solidarity Council in 2013. Sir is the chief editor of special issue of International Journal of Public Service Performance Management, special issue of International Journal of Trade and Global Markets, Prestige. He was the chief editor of Prestige International Journal of Management and IT. Sir is the chief editor of International Journal of Applied Finance and Accounting and is the member of Executive Council of Jivaji University, Gwalior. Sir also holds senior positions in a number of organizations, that is Executive President GMA, Vice President QCFI Gwalior, Chairman ISTD Indore and Gwalior chapters, Director and Industrial Forum Gwalior. Dr. Bhakkar completed his PhD in Management, MBA Operations Management, BE Electronics and Communication and a Diploma in Electrical Engineering. On a personal note, I can say Sir is a person of such a big stature, but at the same time a very humble person who always readily accepts all our invites to be the resource persons whenever we ask and request from him. Thank you, sir, for being so generous to accommodate our request in your busy schedule always. Thank you, sir. Now over to you, sir, for the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ansley. Can I share my slides?
Yes,
or Dean Madam will do it? We'll conduct the session. Hello?
Yes, sir. Sir, Dr. Purushottam has made you the co-host, sir. You can share your slides too,
okay.
Sir.
So let me see. Is the slide visible?
Yes, sir. The screen sharing is about to start, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Your slides are visible now.
Okay. All right. So before we actually start looking at the slide, why did we need ABC, Academic Bank of Stats? If we go back about a decade, UGC decided that the Indian universities and institutes would also start using CBCS system to align our education system with the education system world over. All the countries were using CBCS systems and so on, and we were focused on percentage and very, very structured, rigidly structured curriculum for complete structure, in fact, not only curriculum, complete structure of the UG/PG programs. In fact, even at school level also, but then I will be focusing only on higher education. So there was a very rigidly structured curriculum and structure of programs, which once a student got into, could either leave or could complete. That had no other option. But with the introduction of CBCS system, the student got flexibility in selecting the programs, the courses that the student would like to pursue. That means initially the basket system was used in India, wherein a basket was provided to the student and student could select, like say in specialization, etc. But then CBCS form, if you must get complete freedom to choose subjects and select institutions for each course that he wants to pursue. That means a student can a one institution from another, accumulate all the credits, and can be awarded, provided he has completed the number of credits that are minimum number of credits that are supposed to be there, and the courses that are essential.
Ma'am,
I think sir has lost connection.
yes, ma'am. Sir, join back.
Sir, please unmute yourself, sir.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir. You're
Lost a connection
Yes, sir.
for a fraction of a time. With that, there was a need of some repository wherein these credits could be transferred between universities and institutions. That was a centralized repository. And NEP 2020 bank of credits in its proposal, and it has come into being in the first week of this year with the of a regulation by UGC, and which has already been published in the Gazette of India. So this on board, that means by institutions. I have issues with the connection, but let me have
Sir,
a
can I
parallel
request
connection
something to you?
connected.
Sir, can I request something?
Yes, yes, sir.
सर
जी
सर आप एक बार अपना वीडियो ऑफ करके आप देख लीजिए क्योंकि स्क्रीन शेयर भी नहीं हो पा रही है तो थोड़ी सी नेटवर्क कनेक्टिविटी में भी बेटर हो जाए
okay.
बाय स्विचिंग ऑफ
का
द
issue
वीडियो
है. I am going for let me see the hotspot if that can take care of. Otherwise, let me see. I'm going on to the hotspot and see if that can take care of.
yes, sir. Because sir, your voice is also breaking. थोड़ा हमें relay करने में problem आ रही है sir.
I am connected to the hotspot. I think I'm still having problem. The screen is not visible.
yes sir.
Sir, but your audio and
I'll try again. Is it visible now?
Yes sir.
Okay. So I'll try and switch off my video if it goes again.
Okay, sir.
Or I can do it right now.
Sir, there is no need. Right now it is going on fine, sir.
Okay. All right. So we will have a look at, we will have the look at presentation, and we'll go through that. So I have put in a couple of slides with respect to or for choice-based credit system, just to prepare a ground that why is the ABC was needed, academic bank of credits was needed. So choice-based credit system, almost now all the faculty members teaching in higher education already know about it, so I don't have to explain anything there. So, but and we all know that CBCS system provide choice to the student to select subjects, and that means it is a student-centric system, and it is based on credits. That means a student need to accumulate minimum number of credits at subscribed for a particular program, and then only he or she can be awarded the degree. And those credits can be accumulated from various departments within a university, and also from outside university as well. And with the ABC in vogue, he can, or a student can accumulate, some credits or credits with respect to one subject from one university, second subject from another university, and the third subject from another university. That means at one time he can get registered for various courses in different universities and accumulate all those credits. And if he ensures that at least 30 to 50% of the credits are accumulated from one particular university, he can claim the diploma or whatever whatever requirements he has fulfilled. So credit is generally so it is supposed to be it is supposed to be measured in terms of the content, that how much is the content. But in Indian context, generally we relate it to the time spent by the faculty in teaching, and they are both related. So an hour of teaching or a lecture or tutorial, or 2 hours of practical work is counted as one. It's per week. If that much is the load for a semester, it is considered as a credit. In a semester system, that is considered as a credit. So this is how, if you want one subject of 4 credits, that means you need to have at least, if you want to combine these, you need to combine in such a way that 4 hours load is completed. And we all know that work or practical work or field work accounts for 50% of whatever time is spent. So accordingly, we can combine and get credit. And we know the features. It's learner-centric because learner can select programs, and subject categories also have been defined by UGC. There are 3 categories: core courses, elective courses. Elective can have discipline-specific or generic or projects. Then ability enhancement courses, both for ability enhancement and skill enhancement courses. So these are the 3 categories. These 3 categories, subjects in these categories are evaluated and count towards the SGPA or CGPA. That is semester, the aggregate, or the cumulative grade point aggregate, or the semester grade point average, or the cumulative grade point average. So all the 3 sets of programs are counted towards that, but there can be additional programs taken by the student, which could be non-credit, and they don't count towards the credits, but they need to be passed. That means the student need to get a satisfactory assessment in those programs to complete. Right. So, and the cafeteria approach for choice of subjects. In fact, the pure system, but then if we can't give that, at least cafeteria approach in choice of subjects is to be used. And instead of percentage or marks, grading is done. And grading, we know that grading and grade points we know that grading A plus A, B plus B, C, and then F is P and F. P is pass and F is fail. And we have assigned grade points to them. That is A plus is 10, A is 9, B plus is 8, and B is 7, and so on. So this is how the gradings are done, and grade points are there, and you can then compute SGPA or CGPA from there. So if there is a need, I will talk about that. But right now I'm leaving because majority of us are already using the CBCS systems and so on. So I don't think I will need to talk about that. Now, since now a student can be permitted to accumulate credits from various institutions and universities. Now, unless we have a centralized repository or a centralized depository of credits, it becomes difficult to transfer credits from one university to the other in physical mode, like say certificates or documents. So it became a necessity that we have some repository of credits that can be accessed by all the universities and institutions that are members of that repository. Now, that repository is called Academic Bank of Credits. It has been named as Academic Bank of Credits, and it is now a regulation. That means it's in vogue now, and the institutions can become members of Academic Bank of Credits. There are, of course, rules related to becoming members. Institutions should have NAAC accreditation to be member of Academic Bank of Credits. Academic Bank of Credit is a mechanism or a digital virtual online entity. In fact, established and managed by Ministry of Education or UGC on their behalf to facilitate students to become its academic account holders. Now the students are the academic account holders, but the credits cannot be transferred by the students to these accounts. It is the institutions or universities that actually are permitted to transfer credits to these accounts. And the student can redeem these credits against a certificate or a diploma or a degree once he completes the required number of credits for certificate, diploma, or a degree. So the students are the account holders, paving the way for seamless student mobility. That means student can take courses within the university between departments from different departments, or he can also take up courses from different universities, even online. Those national agencies that have been accepted. Now, those national agencies, a student can also take up courses from them, and they can also be counted towards the credits earned by the student. So this is a seamless system wherein the student is enabled to move between the universities or institutions. And it's a formal system wherein the credits are earned from different institutions are recognized at par with the credits earned within in the same educational institution or higher education institution. Credits can be accumulated, credits can be transferred, and they can be redeemed for acquiring a degree. And once you redeem credits for a degree or a diploma or any certificate program, now those credits cease to be available for redemption again. That means credits can only be redeemed once. They cannot be redeemed multiple times, or for multiple programs, multiple degrees or diplomas. And it helps promote distribution and makes the teaching and learning flexible for the students. If you look at this concept, right now, if we all look at this concept, it looks as if this can really have serious issues for some of the institutions in the country, and it can put a lot of pressure on some of the other institutions that are doing well. And to ensure that this doesn't happen, there has been some cap put in the number of students that can be accommodated for various courses, and any institution can't take more than 20% above the sanctioned strength. So that's a that would take care of that undue pressure on good institutions would be avoided by that cap. Otherwise, a large number of students could have converged on good institutions, and good institutions would have had issues in quality of education because of the sheer number of students actually trying to register themselves to acquire credits from those institutions. Why did the country need ABC objectives? So one was to promote student centricity. That means student is centric to all the teaching learning processes. And if student is at the center stage, then student must be allowed to select whatever programs he wants to pursue, whatever courses he wants to pursue, and from whichever institutions he wants to pursue. So that is the basic reason why ABC is created. Promote more interdisciplinary approach in higher education. A student can choose subjects from different disciplines and can still be awarded a degree of liberal education. That means Bachelor of Liberal Education. A student can be awarded with such a degree. That means he may not complete the number of credits required for any degree program. But if he completes the required number of credits by selecting subjects in such a way that the number of subjects required, number of identified subjects required to be, or courses required to be completed are for any degree are not fulfilled, but the total number of credits required for a degree are completed, then the student can be awarded a degree in liberal education. That means once you earn your credits, whatever courses you pursue, a student can get credits, and those credits would not be lost. They can be redeemed and in terms of degree, diploma, or a certificate program. So OBC helps students select best courses, combination of courses to suit their aptitude and knowledge thirst. That means within university, between different departments and between universities, they can select the best courses. If some courses not available in the university, they can choose from outside. In fact, even if the courses are available and if a student feels that he will be better off pursuing that course from another institution or a university, he can. Is permitted to do that. So to permit students to choose a pace, and this is another area wherein the student centricity is in vogue. A student can decide his own pace at which he would learn the subjects. That means in any given time, if he is not able to complete all the credits of a semester, he can get limited number of credits, and he can accumulate those credits across years, the specified number of years, and still get the degree. That means students can choose their own pace, and at the same time, they can also there could be multiple entry and multiple exits for students. That means a student can pursue some courses from one university, leave the university, and maybe join, say, an organization to work, and after a year or two decides to pursue the program again and enters again. He might also leave the university, go to another university to pursue fee courses, and come back to the same university to pursue other courses from the same university. That means multiple exit and multiple entry points it provides. So another objective of ABC is that the student has freedom to move between universities and university and workplace. And student can tailor their degrees. That means along with the specializations, the students, there are no rigid boundaries, or there are no rigid structures to specializations. So he can choose and select subjects and carry and get a specialization or a degree, prescribed degree, without going through a structured number of subjects or courses that are required, that were required earlier for any specialization in a degree program. We know that NEP had included, or NEP had suggested that multiple entry and exit points be provided to the students, and naturally ABC has been created to fulfill that objective. And it also another objective is to provide teaching learning activities in a distributed and blended manner through integration across campuses, universities, autonomous colleges, online, offline as well, with increased mobility. So blended learning would now be in place instead of only in-campus learning. Organizational structure. How is the academic bank of credits organized? If you look at the name, academic bank of credits, so it functions like a bank. It's therefore the name bank. It functions just like a commercial bank, and a student is account holder in those academic banks. And instead of money, it is the credits that get credited to the account of the student. And these credits can be transferred, these credits can be recognized, these credits can be redeemed. So he has number of options. So and naturally the organization, there has to be a structure to ensure that the student gets all these services by the organization. So ABC is established on the lines of National Academic Depository as a special purpose vehicle. It's a SPV, and it shall have a dynamic website providing all details of ABC, operational mechanism for use for all stakeholders of higher education. And stakeholders for higher education means the institutions, the student, the regulatory bodies, everyone. All these will have the access to ABC. It's a bank for academic purposes on the same pattern of commercial banks, and it would provide a variety of services, including credit verification, credit accumulation, credit transfer, redemption for degree, diploma, or degree means it could be UG, PG, or PhD, and authentication as well. That means once ABC is in vogue, the student need not actually ask the institution to authenticate that he has completed those credits, the ABC can be accessed to authenticate that he has in fact accumulated all those credits. ABC cannot provide any degrees or diplomas. It will not be a degree providing organization. The degrees would still be provided by the institutions or higher education institutions recognized for that purpose. That means only degree awarding institutions. In fact, this definition, which is currently only the universities are permitted to award degrees, is going to change. And there will be institutions, higher education institutions approved by UGC who would be permitted to, would be considered as degree awarding institutions. So the power to award degrees would still rest with higher education institutions which have been registered with the ABC and not the ABC per se. ABC as the will act as empowered body by UGC and MOE to provide authenticated records of credits earned by students from approved HEIs, and that what that means is that the credits accumulated in the ABC will be considered as approved by UGC, and therefore the institutions, higher education institutions, be it universities or colleges, affiliated colleges, autonomous colleges, or deemed to be universities, etc., they will all have to accept those credits as credits earned by the student. Actually, whatever coursework has to be completed, whatever components of study have to be done by the student, if there are any essential components to get a particular degree, because there will be some subjects or some courses that would be specified by the higher education institutions as essential to get a degree in a particular area. Like say, if somebody wants to get a degree in, say, electrical engineering, he needs to do some specified number of courses, electrical engineering courses, to get an electrical engineering degree. There could be a number of other courses that he can get credits from, which can be accumulated, and but there will be some basic courses that would be required to be completed from that stream to get a degree in that stream, and that would be determined by the higher educational institutions and not by ABC. So that would still be defined by universities or autonomous institutions participating in ABC. ABC said would provide facility to open a unique individual academic bank account. That means in digital form. That means there will be a unique ID provided to the student to operate this account, and there will be a standard operating procedure to operate this account, similar to the standard operating procedure that is used in banks, academic banks, to operate your account. So similar, though it will be defined differently, but a defined standardized operating procedure will be used. What is the ABC going to do? What are the functions of ABC? ABC is going to deposit the credits. It is going to validate credits, which will be done as per the guidelines provided by UGC or MOU, as per the norms provided by them. And ABC cannot accept any credits, as I had said earlier also, from students, though the students are the account holders. So that's the major difference between account in ABC and account in bank. In account in bank, you can, any bank account holder can also deposit money, and the organization that the person works in can also deposit money, and the money can be deposited by anybody else. But in ABC, only the institution from where the student is pursuing his courses can only deposit credits to the account of the student. So the documents submitted by the HEIs, higher education institutions, would only be considered as valid, and they need to be transmitted by the authorized IDs from those universities. Then only they will be considered as valid, and not otherwise. Major functions include registration of HEIs based on the norms already fixed up for the purpose. That means HEIs that have been NAC accredited in A grade would qualify to be the registered members of ABC. So ABC will register the higher education institutions, and students can open their accounts, close their accounts, validate their accounts through ABC. So ABC will do that on behalf of the students. The students' credit verification, accumulation of credits, transfer, redemption would also be carried out by ABC among various stakeholders that would be members of ABC. As I had indicated earlier, that even courses completed online through national schemes like SWAYAM, NPTEL, VLab, etc., or any other specified university by the UGC or MOE shall be considered for credit transfer and credit accumulation. That means a student need not do all the courses full time. A student can also complete specified proportion of courses on SWAYAM or NPTEL or VLab. In some of the programs, the proportion can go up to 60% of the total credits that a student needs to earn. So therefore, the learning would be blended. In almost all the degree programs, there will be some programs that a student can do online in any case. So a student will be allowed to pursue programs from MOOCs, that is SWAYAM and PTEL, that is national schemes, but only national schemes or specified universities. And then those credits can also be redeemed for diploma degree, etc., would be counted towards. And functions of ABC are not limited to distance or non-contact mode. It shall be amalgamation of various existing and futuristic teaching learning models. It may also consider credits by students for theory or practical if they are offered as separate credit courses. Some institutions might offer theories as a separate subject and practical. In fact, in some programs, specifically in technology, engineering and technology, we find that the practical is considered as a separate course, and theory is considered as separate course. So ABC would also recognize that as separate courses. Norms in respect to curriculum content, curriculum transaction, education technologies for courses offered, their timing, continuous evaluation methods, attendance, etc., will be decided by the universities or autonomous institutions that are members, where the student gets registered for the degree or to pursue a particular course. A student can register for a degree in a university or a institution and may pursue up to 70% of the courses from the other university or institutions and still be awarded degree from that institution or a university. The student is permitted to pursue from 50% to 70% of the courses from other institutions to get a degree from a particular university. So when you look at these curriculum transaction contents, technology use or timing, evaluation methods, etc., they will be specified by the universities or institutions, not from where you are pursuing your degree, but by the institutions from where you are pursuing these courses. And so that means that one university cannot dictate even if the student is pursuing a degree from there, that you will have to attend the attendance percentages and how the assessment will take place and how continuous evaluation will take place. That would be specified by the university from where the student is pursuing that course. And philosophy of holistic multidisciplinary education, as proposed in NEP 2020, will basically be the base for the operations of ABC. The credits earned by the student would be held in ABC or in depository for a maximum period of 7 years. What it means is not that those credits earned by the students will get lost after 7 years. What it means is that they cannot be redeemed for a diploma or a course. That means a student can't have more than 7 years break between the credits that he or she has accumulated earlier and the credits that he or she is going to accumulate after. That means the break cannot exceed 7 years. So redemption can take place within 7 years. Although the credits would remain in the count of the student even after that, but they cannot be redeemed. The ABC, all the programs that are offered by the institutions under UGC preview will automatically come under ABC. And also the programs that are that are approved by different regulatory or professional bodies like engineering, medical, dental, law will also be included under ABC after due approval of appropriate regulatory professional council. The process is already on now, and different regulatory councils or agencies have already started accepting that these programs will be part of ABC. The ABC would facilitate that. I have already talked about that. It will facilitate transfer of or recognition of credits and redemption of credits on completion of or on accumulation of credits. In fact, the ABC or the choice-based credit system, if you use it in a pure state, would require a lot of counselors in the institutions and universities, because to pursue a particular will be a prerequisite, because unless you have done those prerequisites, you won't understand the concepts or the subjects that you or courses that you would pursue. So therefore, students will have to understand the linkage between between different courses, and when they take admission at the entry level, they may not understand that. So they may pursue some courses, and later on they may realize that they wanted to pursue a particular line, and they can't understand the courses offered in that line because they've not done the basic courses. Though they are free to do that later on as well. That means that flexibility is there when they realize that a particular course is a prerequisite for undergoing another course. They can take up those courses later on and then pursue the courses that can be done based on these programs. And a student can accumulate, as I said, courses that are not related to any specified degree, but then number of credits earned are equal to or more than what are needed for a bachelor's degree. Then a student can be offered Bachelor of Liberal Education that I said earlier. And that means you select whatever courses you want, you accumulate the number of credits that are required as per your choice, and you still get a degree. You would not be without a degree if you accumulated the number of credits that are required for a degree. Eligibility, as I said earlier, also the institutions, all the higher education institutions that are accredited by NAAC in A grade can be members of ABC, can get registered under the ABC scheme. All the other institutions and universities that do not have NAAC A grade accreditation cannot be registered at this stage. And if a higher education institution is A grade at the time of registration, but later on in the second or third round, in the later rounds, the institution is not able to hold its A grade, and it is downgraded into B plus or B or even lower grades, the institution ceases to be member of ABC. However, the students who actually registered when the institution was a member of ABC will continue to remain in the as members of the ABC, and their credits can and the credits earned in the institutions prior to this institution ceasing to be the member of ABC can redeem those credits and can transfer those credits to another institutions, etc. So the students would not be affected if a university or an institution gets a lower grade in NAAC accreditation. However, the institutions would get affected. And credits, as I said, can be redeemed within 7 years, specified separately by ABC for different disciplines. In fact, 7 years cannot become the yardstick for all programs, because the programs vary from a year program, certificate program, to or a few months certificate programs to, say, 5 years degree course for medical and so on. So therefore, this 7 years period cannot be permanent, or this cannot be for all the programs. So it can be decided separately, specified separately by ABC. And I have already talked about all the programs under UGC who come under this, and the other regulatory bodies that regulate other programs can also accept ABC and can allow institutions to register those courses programs under ABC. I have already talked about it. ABC will facilitate credit recognition and redemption process for students who may choose all 100% courses as per their choice, as I said, and they will get PLE. However, HEIs for the categories, all HEIs, in fact, specifically for the programs that are regulated by different regulatory agencies, will have to still get the approval of those statutory bodies, those regulatory bodies, and also to be part of ABC, they will have to get the approval of their governing body. If there is if it is called governing body, or if it may be called syndicate in some cases, or board of management, the highest body in the university, it has to be approved by that, that we must go for ABC. And without their consent or without their approval, ABC will not allow participation of the institutions in ABC scheme. And participating SEIs would be required to give admission in individual courses. What it means is that a student can take admission in an individual course instead of taking admission in a particular degree. And that means he can pursue those courses from different institutions. And then from whichever institution the student has pursued 30% and above courses, he can apply there for degree and get the credits and redeemed, and he can get a degree from that institution or a university. And to ensure that, I was talking in the initial, when I introduced, that to ensure that overcrowding of good institution does not take place, the institutions cannot register students more than 20% of their specified strength by the regulatory bodies, or by the in some cases in private universities, etc., wherein the either Ayog decides or the university based on their facilities decide. So it cannot, the admissions to any program, any course cannot take place more than 20% of the seats above the sanctioned seats of the program. Right, so that would ensure that there will not be crowding in some good institutions and creating problems for those institutions. The universities which actually want to go for ABC need to have a right infrastructure, specifically the internet facility. They need to have high bandwidth internet connectivity to support ODL, online courses, programs, and other infrastructural facilities for face-to-face theory practical training courses as specified by UGC regulation or university regulations from time to time. So that's one requirement, that is high bandwidth internet is required. And the universities also, or higher education institutions also, need to have a web page for ABC scheme in their website with details of ABC scheme, list of higher education institutions that actually are part of ABC scheme, and other institutions registered under ABC scheme, guidelines and standardized operating systems, operating procedures for the students to utilize facility, and so on, so that the students are guided properly and they are able to utilize ABC facility fully. Otherwise, large number of students may not even know what benefits or what facilities they can use, or how can they use ABC for their benefit. Implementation, I have actually a couple of things I have already talked about implementation, but some parts I will be talking. So it's essentially a credit-based, highly flexible, student-centric system or a scheme. We know that the higher education institutions that are participating in ABC, they can amend their rules in terms of course registration, course requirement, because the course registration, course requirements, acceptance of interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary courses, credits to be offered, etc., need to be aligned to the ABC requirements for those higher education institutions that want to be members of ABC. And they can't have their own rules or norms for this, because students would be pursuing these individual courses from different institutions and universities, and therefore they need to be accommodated. And therefore, a standardized process would be the base for course registration, course requirements, acceptance of interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary courses. And all the universities and higher education institutions would need to accept that. The participating higher education institutions in AB scheme will enable students to build their degree as per their choice across the country, but certainly within the limitations of the registered university's overall broad curriculum. That means any university can actually specify that these are the courses that are essential, and remaining courses the student can choose from, say, from the cafeteria. That is a list of courses that are available from there. So that can be done, and 50 to 70% of the courses can be done in the other institutions rather than the ones in which the student is registering for degree. But remaining 30 to 50% have to be done in that university, and the student can be eligible to get the degree with those minimum number of credits to be secured. And necessary approval for credits, flexibility, credit sharings, etc., need to be obtained through these statutory bodies, like for affiliated institutions, some approvals from university, affiliating universities also need to be done. And for autonomous institutions also, universities will be deciding these norms, so that those norms have to be decided by universities. And ABC will maintain dynamic online directory for all the higher education institutions which satisfy the eligibility criteria. So students can only transfer credits between only those institutions that are members of ABC, and not the other institutions that are not members. That means institutions in India, if you look at about less than 15% institutions are accredited in A grade. And that means till now, if you look at today, about 80 to 85% of the institutions are accredited in below A grade. And all those institutions would not be part of the ABC. And that means a student taking admission in ABC registered higher education institution can only complete courses in the institutions that are members of ABC and not outside the ABC ambit. And I talked about that the ABC would define the credits and accumulation and credit transfers and so on. Credits earned by the students will be deposited in the academic account of ABC, just like a savings account by the commercial banks. The academic account of ABC would work, and a student earning, just like a student, a individual might earn his salary, and it gets deposited in the bank account. Similarly, if a student earns credits, they will be deposited in the academic bank of ABC, and would have a shelf life that at least 5 years and can go beyond 7 years, as I talked earlier, because of the duration of different programs. And for the purpose of it, communication of award of any degree, diploma, PG diploma, certificate, etc., the specified number of credits would have to be earned, and that's those would be specified by the higher education institutions and not by academic bank of accounts credits. And once the credit is redeemed, it cannot be redeemed again. It is it would be irrevocably debited from the account of the student. Now, I'll give you an example. Suppose if you've done some courses and earned some credits, which actually qualify you to get a certificate, and you redeem these credits and get a certificate, and then you pursue other courses, and you expect that the courses that you've done for certificate program would be available for your diploma or degree program. They will not, because they have been already consumed. That means they have been debited from the account of the student. So once the credits are redeemed, that means you need to be careful if you want to go for diploma and degree. And if once you do some programs, that means you need to do earn those credits in addition to what you had earned for a certificate program. And if you've earned some credits for a diploma program, and you redeem all those credits to get that diploma program, and now you want to do the degree program, and then you need to do those you need to earn those credits in addition to the ones that you got diploma with. And building a completion of degree requirements could use the method of floating credits also, and transfer of credits between intra and inter institutions, wherein credits once used or redeemed cannot be used for another degree, diploma, or certificate. So you can complete those degrees using floating credits. Since ABC is intended to promote multi and interdisciplinary higher education as its fundamental principle, the structure of courses or appropriate credit requirements can be apportioned as core elective, open elective, skill enhancement electives, ability enhancement electives, etc., as per the approval of the statutory bodies. So that means you may specify for degree that a student needs to do these many core courses. You may not specify which ones, but these many core courses, these many electives, these many open electives, these many skill enhancement electives, and these many ability enhancement electives. And then the student can decide within those baskets. That means here you are making baskets. You are not permitting cafeteria here. And within those baskets, the students can choose. The degrees and degree awarding higher education institutions would need to follow UGC guidelines that in any case for any degree that will have to be followed. Relaxation in duration can be given. That means if a program is 4 years, say a B program, somebody is pursuing, that makes it 8 semesters. That means if any program that is longer than 4 semesters, relaxation in time can be given to the student. That means a 4 years degree can be completed in 3.5 years. 1 semester relaxation can be given. So if the program is longer than 4 semesters, then 1 semester relaxation can be given. That relaxation means the student can do it earlier. Right? Relaxation in terms of later is available, already available for long period of time. A student can leave program in between, come back after within 7 years, and then again pursue the program. So that is already available. But relaxation in terms of completing earlier is limited to 1 semester. That means a student can complete a 4 years program in 3.5 years and a 5 years program in 4.5 years. Now, the problem for institutions would be, since the student is going to take admission in courses and not in degree programs, the fee has to be fixed up for courses, on the basis of courses and not on the basis of programs. Because a student may pursue only one course from one university or institution and another from another university or institution. So fees will have to be charged on courses. Per course, fee has to be fixed up based on the credits of that course. And that means institutions will have to now start fixing their fees based on courses. For each course, there will be a fee instead of only the programs, which is the current process. And ABC will also be charging some money for maintaining the records of the students. So the institutions would need to, and now that will have to be paid by the registered student and the registered institution separately. That means a registered student will be paying separately and a registered institution will be paying separately. But this fee, ABC wants, or ABC states or UGC states that it will be nominal, so that maximum use of this scheme is there. But that will have to be seen. It will be the responsibility of concerned university to provide guidelines to ABC to monitor the development and operationalization of ABC program at the university level and at their affiliated autonomous autonomous colleges. That means if suppose there are 450 institutions affiliated to a particular university, now that university will be responsible for not only implementing or ensuring everything is aligned to ABC for itself, but it will also be responsible to align the processes of the affiliated institutions that are part of ABC. So it has to monitor those institutions in terms of they currently also monitor all affiliated institutions naturally for quality of education, etc. But now one more area will be required to be monitored, and that is whether the institution is following everything as per the ABC norms. Universities shall offer teacher staff training because currently teachers and the staff members, they won't understand the flexibility. They can't even imagine the kind of flexibility this ABC is going to embed in the programs that are offered by institutions and universities. So these training programs will have to be done before the institutions can become members, so that the institution can take place. Institutions can ensure that the students from that institution can register as the members of ABC, and these can also be funded because they can be part of a faculty development program, quality improvement program, professional development program, or technology inculcation programs, which are actually funded by some of the funding bodies. So institutions can utilize that and get the funds and also carry out these trainings. The quality assurance and ABC implementation at registered university autonomous and autonomous colleges level shall be developed by the university college concerned, either through the internal quality assurance cell, that is IQAC, or any other appropriate structured mechanism as may be decided by the HEI, that is higher education institution, that may be called CTC, or that may be called ODL or online education, etc. Specifically for those online educational institutions can use that ODL/online, and institutions, other institutions can call that IQAC or CQC. I told earlier also that any institution becoming a member of ABC will have to have a page on their website about ABC, and the annual reports of AGC scheme implemented by it will also have to be indicated in their website, and measures taken by quality assurance, quality sustenance, and quality enhancement in terms of these by the institution or university to ensure a smoother implementation of ABC would also be part of these annual reports. A grievance cell will also have to be opened in these institutions, specifically for taking care of ABC related grievances. This grievance cell would be named as ABC grievance redressal mechanism, and it will be this will also be opened at MOE, UGC, ABC level, and it will also need to be opened at individual university and higher education level as well. So ABC grievance redressal mechanism that would be at MOE, UGC, ABC would listen to the complaints of the students against the higher education institutions, etc., and to take care of the problems that the individual students might face. But an individual studying in a particular institution can also approach the grievance redressal cell that would also be formed within the institutions or universities. Right, so the grievance redressal cell not only will be formed in MOU, UGC, ABC, etc., it will also be formed within in the higher education institutions. And if any university or institution is found violating or does not fulfill conditions, requirements, or for implementation of ABC scheme as per these regulations, the commission may recommend the removal of such institution from ABC. And any other punitive action may also be taken by the commission. Now, in that case, it will be treated at par with any institution that gets lower grade than A in NAC accreditation. Similar process will take place here as well. That means the students who are registered before the removal of that institution from ABC will continue to enjoy all the facilities of ABC, and the institution, when it ceases to be part of or member of ABC, after that, the students cannot register, or the students studying in that institution cannot register to ABC. With that, I have finished my talk. Now you're free to ask questions, please.
So are you saying something, sir?
No, yeah, sure. No, what I said was that I have completed my discussion. So
there are two questions.
if somebody has any questions, they can put up their questions.
Yes, sir. I'm taking the questions. Sorry, sir, I had some network issues. Sir, there are two questions I can see in the chat box or the live YouTube live. The first question is, does the participating higher education institutions had a right to deny admissions to a student?
No. If there is a vacancy, see, it has to be. It has a right to deny if that means a merit has to be developed. Say if there are number of students applying for a particular course in a particular institution, and as we know that more than 20% strength cannot be increased. Say sanctioned strength is 60, and 20% means 12. So not more than 72 students can pursue that course. Now a merit has to be developed, and individual student cannot be denied admission by the higher education institution once the student has applied. Yes, merit will be there, and based on merit, whoever actually falls in that merit will have to be given the admission.
Thank you, sir. So next question is, sir, will ABC lead to reduction of workload, which will affect post-service of teachers in college?
Well, yes, to a certain extent, but it may not lead to reduction of the requirement of faculty in institutions, because right now, if you look at the faculty strength or faculty to student ratio that we actually need for to develop good quality higher education institutions is not there. In fact, our regulatory bodies have also relaxed this norm because of the non-availability of good quality faculty. They've reduced that ratio, and in fact, they've made it to 20:1, etc., which is not the right ratio. In fact, if you look at universities that appear in top 100 universities in the QS list, you would find that the ratio is less than 10:1. So we need to look at that. And if that, if we want to actually improve quality, that we need to achieve that ratio. So the faculty requirement will not reduce. But yes, the workload would reduce a bit because a percentage of courses would be allowed to be done online through MOOCs, SWAYAM, etc. So those courses need not be run by the university or higher education institution. But then the proportion or percentage will still be worked out based on number of students registering, and therefore the requirement of faculty would not reduce.
Okay, sir. So the next question is, what are the opportunities for the old learners or students who have already completed the degree as per old educational policy or in service candidate?
Well, for the degrees have already completed or are already pursuing before becoming members of ABC cannot be considered. So only the programs that would be pursued or only the courses that would be done by the candidates or students once they become members of ABC, only those credits will be registered in ABC. So naturally, whatever degrees and or post-graduation or PhD degrees have already been completed or are being pursued by the students before the ABC came into being, now those cannot become part of ABC. It will naturally be for the ones who register themselves as part of ABC or open an account in ABC and then earn credits by pursuing different courses. Only those would be counted.
Okay, thank you, sir. So next question is, undergraduate degrees can have a duration of 3 years to 5 years. Will all credits have to be collected within that duration?
No, that is what is changed. That degree need not be completed in 5 years now anymore. And in fact, this multiple exit, multiple entry can only work if that, as I had said earlier, that the credits that you have earned can be redeemed within 7 years from the time they have been earned, right? So that means a candidate can take a break, and within 7 years, the candidate can come back and pursue remaining part of the course. And this is for UG I'm talking about, and also for PC it is for 2 years PC it is 5 years, and for UG 3 years or 4 years UG it is 7 years gap. So 7 years, till 7 years, the candidate can come back and pursue remaining courses and complete the degree. And that makes it, you can understand that the total duration now would become whatever part was left plus 7 years. That means if 2 years were left, you did only 1 year and then decided to join a job after 6 years, because 1 year you had completed, so that plus 6 years, 7 years. If you come back within that duration, the credits can be redeemed, and you can pursue the remaining part.
Thank you, sir. The next question is, can students simultaneously join more than one institution?
Yes, a student can join a number of institutions for individual courses. That means at the same time, what I am saying is a student may register for degree in one institution and may pursue courses from other institutions at the same time for the same degree. And up to 70% of the courses may be done in other institutions. So a student can register in multiple institutions at the same time, pursuing different courses.
Thank you, sir. Next question is, can a student surrender credits for diploma and add more earned credits for certificate or degree?
As I said, once the credits have been redeemed, this is the issue that has to be worked out, because current norms are that once the credits have been redeemed, they cannot be used for any other degree. But we all know that in number of programs, when a student has done diploma, some credits of that diploma get transferred to degree, because a diploma holder can take admission in second year in say BE program. A person who's done diploma after 10th, they can get admission in second year. So some credits actually get transferred to degree, but that provision is not there in ABC. Once a student has taken the diploma, then those credits have been redeemed. But if he does not take diploma and pursues the other courses that are required for degree, then initially he might think that I will only do a diploma. So he pursues some courses and then decides that, okay, no, I will pursue a degree and not a diploma. So now he pursues more courses and completes those also, and he gets a degree. Now that way they can be counted, but he can't get for the same courses diploma as well as same courses counted for degree. That's not allowed.
Thank you, sir. Next question is there any possibility of conversion of degree after acquiring more credits?
Conversion of degree into honors, etc.
So the question Dr. Akhtar Parveen has asked this only. Is there any possibility?
And again, I will tell you the same thing here. Unless the candidate takes the degree, requests for the degree, this can be done. That means after completing the required credits for a degree, normal degree, and for honors you need to do say 5 more courses. So without taking this degree, if you do 5 more courses, you get a honors degree. But if you redeem those credits and take a degree and then think that you will do 5 more and get a honors degree, no, that's not permitted. The courses once redeemed cannot be considered for any the credits redeemed once redeemed cannot be considered for any other degree.
Sir, can I take more questions, sir?
Yes.
So next question is, if a college loses its NAC A grade, will it affect the credit point of students? Then in that case, can the student change the college or university?
It is simple, yes. If the college loses A grade and moves out of ABC, a student who has actually accumulated credits till the time the institute was part of ABC, those credits would remain. There will be no dilution there. And if now the student cannot pursue his degree from or his courses from the institution that is no more A grade, because if he pursues, then he has to move out of the ABC. So he can pursue the remaining courses from any other university or institution. And if he pursues more than 30% of the courses from another university or institution, he can get a degree from that institution. That means he can register for degree. See, you might do courses and you might not register for it. You will be registering for degree only when you have completed the required credits. That means You will be registering for different courses and you will not be registering for a degree, but you will have that degree in mind. Okay. So you will keep accumulating your credits. And when you want to get those credits redeemed, you need to ensure that in particular one institution from where you want your degree to be done, you must have pursued at least 30% of the credits that you earned from that institution. Then you can get a degree from that institution or that university. But if you have pursued less than 30% from all the universities and institutions, and you have not pursued more than 30% from any, then Bachelor of Liberal Education can only be awarded.
Thank you, sir. Next question is, academic credit has any connection with NAC accreditation?
What is it?
Does academic credit has any connection with NAC accreditation?
No. Academic credits that the student gets have nothing, no linkage with the NAC accreditation, because that minimum criteria has already been set that a institution with NAC A only can be part of. And after that, whether an institution is NAC A+, etc., the credits would be the same. The value of credits would remain same.
So the next question is, if the institute degrade itself and be removed from the registered list, then the students of such institutions can register themselves to other institutions and continue credit accumulation.
Yes. Yes, that is possible.
Okay. So another question is of below Ishtar. The person is asking, if it is going to be extra effort for a faculty, shouldn't they be paid? If so, rules for it.
I didn't get the question. Can you repeat?
If it is going to be extra effort for a faculty, shouldn't they be paid? If so, rules for it.
Extra efforts for what?
There
are no extra efforts. That means what kind of extra efforts? The students, the faculty members carry out number of responsibilities in a university or institution in addition to teaching. In any case, and like say mentor, a teacher mentor does the responsibility of ensuring that the students have required attendance, they pay their fees in time, their internal marks are also known to their parents and so on. And same way, a guide will be appointed who will guide the students in selecting appropriate courses. That's it. How the faculty members would have more load in that case? I don't get it. And if you say because 20% more students might get listed, because of that load would increase, there will be no extra pay for that.
Thank you, sir. Next question is, if HEI has become an institution under ABS scheme, can it have certain program under CBCS scheme, or all discipline courses should come under ABC scheme?
ये वही बात हो गया, पूरा रामायण पूरा हो गया. पूछ रहे हैं कि सीता कौन था. Actually, see, it is a ABC is nothing but a CBCS system. Okay, so ABC is nothing but CBCS system. It is only a recording agency. That means whatever credits a student was supposed to be acquiring in a particular institute now can acquire from different institutions, and those credits can be accumulated in ABC. But it's a pure CBCS system, right? So it is not that it is not a CBCS system, or CBCS system is different and ABC system is different. That is why I talked about CBCS system, and I talked about the requirement of ABC, that if you want to implement CBCS system, that means students must be permitted to acquire credits from different institutions and different departments from within same university. And if you want to do that, there has to be some agency to record those credits, a centralized agency, so that there are no confusions. and institutions can't say no in accepting those credits. And that is why this agency has been created. The ABC is actually to facilitate CBCS, and it is not a different system. ABC is just, it has been created to facilitate a pure CBCS system.
Okay. Also, the chat box is of similar questions and very thankful messages, informative session, excellent sessions. So before we end the session, I take this privilege to say a few words. For the opening session, we had with us Dr. S.S. Bhakar, Vice Chancellor, ITM University. Dr. Bhakar set the impeccable tone for the 2 weeks online interdisciplinary international refresher course on academic bank of credit scheme in higher education, UGC regulation 2021. Sir, your detailed explanation, simple pedagogy made the concepts much easier for us to understand. It is an honor and privilege to have you with us, sir. We are thankful to you for taking out time from a busy schedule for us. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Ansika.
Thank you, sir.
Can I leave now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. And to the participants, we will start our second session on time. You all are requested to kindly join on time, before time, at least 5 to 10 minutes before. Thank you all. Purushottam, sir, you can end this.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Then he can join in.
We have his WhatsApp number also, so we'll just
send a message to him.
And we can start on with the session because we are live now.
Yeah, please start. Yeah.
Thank you. We are very privileged today to have with us two stalwarts in this area where they would be talking about.
Ma'am, thoda sa mic. Thank you.
Okay. Am I audible now, Anjali?
Ma'am, thank you.
It's our proud privilege today that we have as our international speakers two very renowned scholars, Professor Janaka Ruwanpura and Professor Andrew Lang. Before I give the introduction, sir, we would like to welcome you, and I request Professor Suman Kundu, Director, South Campus and Director, Center for Canadian Studies, to welcome our esteemed guests.
Okay. Very good evening to you all, and good morning to our guest from Canada. It's a privilege for me to welcome you, Dr. Dayal, Dr. Anjali Gupta, Professor Yamini Gut, and our principal of Ramanujan College, Dr. Agrawal, and our resource persons, our participants. As Dr. Dayal mentioned, it's really privilege for us that we have been organizing such kinds of refresher programs and faculty development programs over the entire pandemic period. But this is an opportunity for us to internationalize it, and Center for Canadian Studies, associated with Ramanujan College, to take that forward. Canada is considered a country which ranks very high in education, and we thought it would be apt to have two of our Canadian speakers, Professor Janaka Ruwanpura from University of Calgary and Mr. Andrew Lang from Concordia University, two reputed prestigious universities of Canada. And so we organized this session on international perspectives as part of 2 weeks interdisciplinary international refresher course on academic bank of credits scheme in higher education, which is part of our new education policy, which will be implemented at the earliest opportunity. We had an inaugural session in the morning, and then we had a session during the day. And here we are with international session where we have two accomplished speakers, Professor Janaka Ruwanpura from University of Calgary and Dr. Andrew Lang from Concordia University. We welcome you both to the session. Probably Dr. Lang will join shortly. It is our pleasure, Professor Rohan Pura, that you could manage some time in spite of a very busy schedule. I know you are in administrative positions in the university, and your contribution to the university has been remarkable. We are thankful that you could manage some time for us to give an international perspective on international partnership to develop and sustain collaborative degree models to benefit Indian students. A very warm welcome to you. And Dr. Dayal, I think you can introduce and start the session.
Thank you so much, Professor Suman Kundu. Sir, you have rightly said it is a proud privilege to have Professor Janaka Ruwanpura with us today. And sir, thank you for being here with us right in the morning, because I know it must be early morning there in Canada. So for you, we have put you in discomfort, but I think we are the students, the teachers, the research scholars are going to really benefit with this address that you give to them. Professor Janaka Ruwanpura, professor in the Department of Civil Engineering. He is the Vice Provost and Associate Vice President, Research, International, University of Calgary. Professor Ruwanpura's PhD is in the area of Construction, Engineering and Management from the University of Alberta. His graduation is from University of Manitoba and post-graduation from Arizona State University. Before joining as Vice Provost, Professor Ruwanpura was a full professor and Canada Research Chair in Project Management Systems in the Schulich School of Engineering. He is also the Director of Project Management. Professor Ruwanpura is a former US Fulbright Scholar. He has made immense contribution in the construction industry for productive improvement, project management, project planning, to name a few. There are more than 180 technical papers in the refereed journals to his credit. Professor Ruwanpura, as the Vice Provost, has been credited with new initiatives in the university. There are many projects that he has undertaken, which include developing and implementing collaborative degree models for undergraduate and graduate levels, offering customized training and capacity building programs. Around $57 million of funds have been raised for research and infrastructure. Under his dynamic leadership, University of Calgary was recognized with a Comprehensive Internationalization Award from the Canadian Bureau for International Education and an Institutional Award for Global Learning, Research and Engagement from the Association of Public and Land-Grant Universities. Professor Ruwanpura is a licensed professional engineer in Alberta and a professional quantity surveyor in Canada. He holds professional membership of Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors UK and is a fellow of the Canadian Society for Civil Engineering. Once again, sir, we reiterate we are extremely privileged and we are grateful to you for having spared your valuable time. Over to Professor Ruwanpura, sir.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for your kind introduction. And then thank you very much for Professor Suman and the team for inviting me. Yeah, it's actually 6:38 in the morning from Calgary, but you know, in the summer months. But first of all, I want to talk about and say that we all are in this pandemic. I hope it's a tail end of the pandemic, and I hope everybody is safe and well. And let's see whether we can actually get out of this pandemic and then come back to our typical day-to-day business, so that, you know, whatever we say, the implementation becomes easy. I would like to thank, of course, the government of Canada, government of India for implementing these reforms of the new education policy. In fact, I had previously spoken through our Shastri Canada Institute, you know, and then you know, read about that document as well. But I think today my talk is around how do we develop partnerships and then to benefit students, and to talk about different models of partnerships. Some of them that we have implemented successfully, some of them that we are in the process of implementing in the future, although some of the groundwork had been done to ensure that these partnerships are built. So I'm going to share my screen, my slides. So assume that you all can see my slides now.
Yes, Professor Ruwanpura, we can see.
Yeah. So technically, to talk about this, but first of all, I really want to start with and say why we develop partnership. Why partnerships are essential for universities, right? There are a number of reasons why we need partnerships. I mean, to address bigger problems, to participate in local and regional development, to play on the global stage, really, really critical. To enhance student opportunities and experiences, and then of course, to engage with the broader innovation ecosystems, right? Internationalization is a critical element for any university. Therefore, partnerships are really, really essential. When you look at partnerships, there are so many different types of partnerships. There are academic partnerships, mobility partnerships, research partnerships, global development, and the community. And then there are, depending on that partnership type, for example, in academic, that can be between the universities, like a university A with university B, or it can be a network of universities. Likewise, depending on the nature of the partnerships, the entities are different. And I think my colleague Andrew is going to talk about specific to mobility partnerships. But having done this role for the last 8 years, I've realized when you develop a partnership, and that's why I want to emphasize this part first, what are the best practices for managing international partnerships? There are what we identified called pillars of successful partnerships as prerequisites. Because if you don't have those prerequisites, it's very hard to develop, maintain, implement, and sustain those partnerships. Then I'm going to talk about some of the key considerations for managing, partnerships of any nature, whether it can be research or academic or mobility. So the 5 keywords that I'm going to talk about as really critical, and I'm also using this 5 based on my own experience with India, right? Over the last, I would say, I have dealt with India both as a vice provost and associate vice president, as a professor in the past, in terms of developing partnerships. Therefore, it's important that I talk about these 5 as critical prerequisites. One is reciprocity. Reciprocity is critical to make sure that we have the 2 universities so that we understand each other's requirements. To maintain ethics and trust is really critical, right? We want to make sure that when we develop a partnership, that the ethical considerations must be there. And we need to identify a trusted partner. Like having that trusted partner means that it's really easy we can get into to the weeds of any partnerships that we respect each other, right? We respect in terms of culturally, in terms of laws, in terms of policies and things like that needs to be there. And within Canada, of course, we talk highly about equity, diversity, and inclusivity. So therefore, those things needs to be there. Engagement. Partnership does not mean that only one party is active. It needs to be ensure that both parties are really active, and we get our academic units engaging in that partnership. The 5th one is really critical, and I think I actually want to mention that some of the partnerships that I started or at the feasibility stage, why didn't continue when I'm specific to India? Commitment. The commitment, the word, the yes does not need to be the just yes for the polite reasons. The yes means that it needs to be really committed, that we are making a commitment towards getting these partnerships done, right? Because when we talk about students' partnerships, for the benefit of student partnership, if we do something, that we need to have that commitment. It is not a polite yes, it needs to be really committed with resources attached, right? Where the institution is making a commitment to make it happen. right? Along that line, before I talk about the different examples and different models, then we thought, it's really good that to say in a partnership between, let's assume the partnership is between University of Delhi and the University of Calgary, right? What are the common considerations? Mutually beneficial. It's not for one party. I talk about the reciprocity, but making sure that we craft these partnerships that identify how it would benefit both universities. Internal buying. When we do these partnerships or whatever the projects, we want to make sure that our deans are on board, our department heads are on board on a specific discipline. That internal buying is really, really critical. If you don't have the internal buying, it is not going to sustain very well. As a project manager and professor, I always ask about the expectations, because we need to identify what do we expect out of this partnership. Critically identify, what are the expectations that you have from each other, right? And then these partnerships need to be focused on the right areas in terms of curriculum, academic nature, academic areas, right? And then comes quality assurance. Because I've seen in cases where things start very well, but it doesn't maintain very well. It's because we don't pay attention to the quality. We want to make sure that whatever we do, that it will have the right ingredients in there so that the quality will maintain throughout that project or beyond that. Sustainability, right? It's not about just start something, having everything getting there, but forgetting the rest of it, right? Make sure that whatever we start, we maintain it very well, we sustain it, and we renew this partnership over and over again. Like, for example, we have some partnerships at the University of Calgary with the international partners that sustain over 35 years for the benefit of students. And those are really critical partnerships. Agility. Pandemic is this corona pandemic is probably the best example to say that how we apply the principles of agility, so that we have to make some changes as we go, in a partnership. We can't just simply say that because of pandemic that we can't continue. You have to find an alternative ways of doing things, right? Last one is assessment of impact. How do you measure the success? What are the key performance indicators of measuring a partnership, right? It needs to be identified, and then we do this as assessment impact. So these are key areas, but then specific to academic partnerships. In addition to them, I'm actually saying we also wanted to identify the right combination of modalities, and that's where I'm going to talk about some of those modalities with you. Where if you want to build these partnerships for the benefit of students, what are they? What are the right models available, right? And similarly for mobility type of partnership, when I say mobility, these are where students get involved in doing activities in another university or a college. Again, the modalities are important, but also making sure that we support the students with funding, right? Because a lot of these things cannot be done without proper funding and proper resources, right? So this is I would say, the first part, which talk about the partnerships and the critical elements of the partnerships. Let me now talk about the collaborative degree models. In order to, when I talk about your credit systems and then talk about your blended learning, let me highlight the 3 different types. What are those collaborative degree models that are suitable for undergraduate degrees, like the BScs, the BAs, and the BTech? For master's degrees, we talk about, in India, we talk about postgraduate experience, right? And then the third one is the doctoral degrees, okay? So If you look at the undergraduate level collaborative degree models, I mean, these are two examples that I'm going to highlight. One of them is where, in a collaborative undergraduate degree program, that you include a 2-semester period at a partner university, so that as a recognized degree pathway, so that the students can, while they are at your university, you can actually take courses as a formal program, right, with another university that might give you other opportunities. It might actually give an opportunity based on those 2-semester period, at a foreign university, that would enable them to get into maybe an advanced degree as well. Another one that is quite popular, we call articulation programs, where you can actually have a 2+2 type of programs. If it's a 3-year program, let's say, you can talk about a 1+2 type of programs, where year 1 and year 4 are at the home university, and maybe year 2 and the 3 at the partner university. In this model, the students will get a degree from both institutions, right? You can get a degree from, let's say, we talk about University of Calgary and University of Delhi. The students will get 2 degree certificates because they go through the curriculum of both universities. Now, why I'm highlighting these things? Can you do these things under your new education policy without much bureaucracy, right? Is it within that government support as well as the university support? Like, these are models that are available. If I go into the master's level, there are collaborative or joint master's programs subject to curriculum matching. Let's assume that a master's program, in 2-year master's program, where maybe the students can study 1 year at the home university, another year at the partner university. Thanks to COVID, we have learned how to do these things even virtually without students attending the university in person, which might help in terms of the funding, right? As long as the university is willing to do that one, either in person or in virtual or in a blended way, these options are available for students to do it. I mean, these are options that we have it here, where we already have partnerships or we are in the process of enhancing partnerships. But you can also look at a little bit more out of the box thinking. You could have a 3-way collaborative master's, where the degree is only given by the home university, but the students get experience in studying at a second university, maybe in Canada, maybe a third university in Australia, right? And you come to a formal agreement and then do the curriculum matching, but the degree is given by the home institutions with collaborative learning experiences from 2 other universities around the world, okay? At the doctoral level, these are 2 famous programs that we have, some other universities have. I'm sure that my colleague Andrew has it in Concordia too. There is a PhD Kotutel program. A PhD Kotutel program is where a student in home university or the partner university can work with 2 professors from both universities, fulfill the requirements of PhD requirements of both universities, right? With a residency requirement of at least 1/3 of the degree that the student will have to be at both institutions. And at the completion, the students will get a PhD Kotutel degree, where the degree is given by the home university, which is actually mentioning that this is done in collaboration with a partner international university. Technically, the student gets a dual degree in this case. The collaborative joint PhD program means a degree is given by the home university with collaborating with another international university, where the students will be supervised by professors from both ends, right? but subject to all the academic requirements of the home university. So the bureaucracy of this one is a little bit less than the PhD Kotutel degree, because the Kotutel degree has so many things about fulfilling the requirements from both universities, right? In terms of mobility partnerships, I know that my colleague Andrew is going to talk about the credit system now, but I'm going to talk about different models available. The first one is a traditional exchange program, and we actually like to call it that we do it with preferred partner status, so that we can do advanced credit evaluation for specific departments and degree programs, so that a student will involve in an exchange program for a semester or 2 semesters, where the students will get credit by studying at a other institution, and given that credit to your institution, so that the basically you get that reciprocity in there. And then you also have in order to make sure that we have those programs to work better, we have to have a healthy balance between them. Let's say if I send 5 students to your university, I think it would be the best ways that the 5 students from your university come to my university as well, right? And that's a traditional exchange program. Then we have collaborative online international learning type of programs, where within existing courses, faculty members from partner universities contribute to course content and enable student collaboration in the virtual space, right? Where one is in person, the other one is through collaborative online, right? Which happened a lot during the last, I would say 16 months around the world for these programs. 2 other programs that actually can go beyond exchange. One of them is, I'm going to talk about the one on the faculty-led group study program first. Professor from, let's say, Department of Geography, right, wants to lead a group of students and go to another country, partner with another university. We have the geography students from that university also in the same class together, taught by instructors from both universities, right? It's a collaborative instruction. This is very famous. We have a number of those programs from my university every year. And we encourage them to do that, and they actually get academic credits for these courses. Then if you look at my elite program is where what we call academic industry learning, international learning program, where student would go to a 1-year exchange. Let's say a University of Calgary student goes to India, to your university, and then study 1 semester there. And once that semester is over, he or she will be placed at a work placement internship. Maybe let's say for example, recently we had our university sign up a very high level partnership with Emphasis from Bangalore. And for example, they could probably work in Emphasis for another semester, or they would do a research internship with a professor at the same university, right? So recently, University of Calgary did this program. I just want to highlight that, which was very successful. We did this one twice. I want to highlight.
Daddy, अपना laptop देना जरा. Laptop देना.
So we ran this program twice now. The first time when we ran it, we got 54 students around the world, and we called Global Community Challenge YYC. The last winter, from January to March, we ran this program that included 136 students from 23 universities in 13 countries. And each team was given a challenge by 17 community organizations in Calgary. Okay, so the community organizations are in Calgary. They set the challenge, and then they actually had 1 or 2 people from those community organizations as mentors. And these groups are crafted from my university students with students around the world, and they were handling these challenges, and their job was to come up with a solution. And I'm pleased to say that some of the solutions developed by these groups have been adapted for implementation by those community organizations, right? So this gives you another opportunity where the students, without traveling, right, on an online platform to do this one. But, if you really look at it, if you can do that in person, that would be even better. Given the situation, of course, if we go back to our normal routine, these things are possible, right? So today, my job was to explain to you actually 2 things. One is why partnerships are essential. If you develop a partnership, what are the prerequisites for a partnerships? And what are the common considerations for a partnerships? Because without those ingredients, partnerships would not occur. Very difficult to do it, right? And I'm going to give one example from India where I got involved, where we were trying to develop a partnerships in Maharashtra, right? That involved some of the academic institutions and the Ministry of Technical Education. And we started with a big gala to launch it. But nothing happened after the launch. It was simply for public purposes, because, as I said, the commitment was not there. Engagement was not there. Resources was not there. So we simply highlighted and spent a lot of time. I had to come to Maharashtra 3-4 times, but the implementation did not happen. So that kind of partnerships, even initiation, is not the right thing to do, right? And my second part is to talk about different modalities, different models of academic partnerships and mobility partnerships, the benefit of our students. I hope with the new reforms that you have, with your credit systems and the blended learning that are mentioned there, that this will enable you to develop innovative, creative programs for the benefit of students. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Dr. Anjali?
Yes.
Yeah. Are there any questions on the chat box?
I think they were just getting, they were clearing up some glitches, sir, I think, in between.
Okay.
So she was waiting for some questions. But I think it has been an extremely informative, I would say, session that we've had with Professor Rowanpura. And I would just like to ask him, are there any collaborating academic partnerships, sir, that you have with institutions in India?
Yes, we do, but not on the academic side, especially on the collaborative degree model side. I think the bureaucracy
I'm
is
just asking the question, sir.
1 minute, he is answering a question.
Yes, sir.
I think
So
the
one
biggest
question
issue.
is from
Anjali, wait.
ma'am. Am
He's
I
answering.
audible?
You are audible, but sir is answering a question. I think you couldn't hear me. So after that, you can ask. Yes, sir. Sorry.
I think the biggest challenge on the academic partnerships is to make sure that that's the reason why I mentioned about those common considerations. The bureaucracy sometimes, because you always talk about the guidelines and protocols at your university, and which are difficult to do it. But however, I think the easiest out of the 3 is the PhD level, Yeah, we have actually got a few of those collaborations at the PhD level, which is much easier than the undergraduate and the master's one. The undergraduate one is the most difficult one. And sometimes we find the answer no without looking at how to get out of that word no, right? Because we talk about, this is how this university work and we can do it. But you don't find a way, how can we make it happen, right? And that's why I talk about those, key considerations and the prerequisites, because if you really want to do it, there's a way to do it. You have to find it. I mean, of course, not bending the rules. With maintaining the university guidelines, if you want to make it that happen, you can make that happen very easily. It will take time. But mobility partnerships, yes, we have it. But academic partnerships of collaborative degrees are unfortunately, we don't have it with any of the Indian institutions.
Thank you, sir. Anjali, over to you.
So one question is from the participants that how do we manage about the finances of the students, especially the stay part?
Yeah, so for example, in a collaborative degree model, let's say, for example, if you're getting a dual degree from international university and the home university, of course, the students will have to pay the tuition of the international university, that's a requirement. Otherwise, in Canada, of course, we are public universities. I mean, pretty much 99.9% of our universities are public in Canada.
Another question is that the concern.
Dr. Anjali, are you not? Can you hear us?
Yes, sir. I'm able to hear her.
No, he has not finished answering. Why are you asking the second question?
Sir, actually, I think there is a gap between YouTube Live and Zoom that is coming. That is
why
this is
So please listen to him first. Yeah, let him finish answering the question.
Okay, so as I said it, I'll repeat this answer again. If you're looking at a collaborative degree model, especially at the undergraduate level or at the master's level, since the degree is given by both universities, when the degree is given by both universities, where the students will have to pay the tuition of the partner university. That's a requirement. Otherwise, as a public institutions, we are not able to take that tuition away, because we are accountable for taxpayers in our country as well. However, for exchange programs, I think Dr. Lang is going to talk about that. For exchange programs, that's not the case. As long as you keep the balance of that, you don't have to pay. You basically can manage on a reciprocity, right? And that's sort of the way that it works. But what we have done is, on some of the collaborative programs in the past, we have given a very small portion of the tuition as a scholarship back to student, which is almost like a maximum of 10% of the tuition. But otherwise, we are not in a position to do it to avoid the tuition fees. Go ahead, Dr.
Anjali, your next question.
Another question is from Dr. Pradeep Kumar Agarwal. He's asking that how the collaborative degree can really help us in getting the right balance between the just a minute. Yeah, how the collaborative degree model can be fitted under the NEP, where there is a structured program about the courses and credits.
I don't think I'm qualified to answer that. I don't know how it works there, and that's why I've said that I think that probably needs to be answered from your side.
Yeah.
Whether that can be done, because I think, as I said, if it is not possible, you will have to find a way to do it. I think that's why sometimes we could do the collaborative degree models between the universities, because if the guidelines and protocols do not support, then you cannot have that word collaborative, right? That's why I talk about the mutually beneficial thing, because without that, you can't make it happen. So we have to find a way to do it, but of course under grants commission, university grants commission under the rules of the and the regulations of the university to find a way to do it.
Sir, there are two questions. I'll just club them quickly, sir. One question is from Vijeta ma'am. She's asking that in case of a partnership with foreign universities for doctoral degree, where should a candidate complete the coursework? And also, can a student get fellowship for his higher education in foreign university? There's a question. This question is from Arif, sir.
Actually, very good question, because like I'm talking about my university, okay? So I can't talk about any other university. So for example, yes, under PhD co-tutel or the joint PhD program that I mentioned, when a student is in Calgary, we typically look after that student in terms of tuition and also provide a stipend to the student. Because of course we understand that because it's a collaborative nature. But then we ask the partner university, when the student is, let's say, back in India, could you look after that student in terms of any tuition or any of the stipend that for living expenses, right? So you come to a reciprocal agreement that when the student is at my place, we look after, and the student at your place you look after, right? But the rule is in a PhD co-tutel program, wherever the student, that they have to pay the tuition to that institution, not to the home institution, right? So those are some of the things that we discussed during the negotiations. But I mean, there are lots of programs that we have on a reciprocity that we don't charge a tuition, and that happen in PhD programs, that happen in a lot of undergraduate exchange type of programs.
Sir, another question is by Raghavendra, sir. He's asking that, is there any general procedure that is being followed for the purpose of shortlisting the candidates for doctoral program? And should this collaboration with government, is with government consent or just with the collaborative university consent?
As far as I know, all our joint programs, we don't deal with the governments because those are our existing programs. So we don't deal with the governments at our end of the foreign countries. Because those are existing programs. The issue is if we come up with a new program, then of course in Canada, we have to go through a whole new procedure about getting that approvals. In terms of shortlisting, I think that is totally up to the professors, right? The professors, as long as they can actually select the student, maybe interview the student, if they feel satisfied with the student, they can actually get admitted and then be in that program without any issue, right? But we specify, like for example, I can tell you, we have done a lot of 2+2 programs at the undergraduate. We have another program called 3+1 and +1. So that means students will complete 3 years at the home institution. They came to our university for the last year at the undergraduate. And then upon successful completion, they were admitted to a 1-year master's program. But then we prescribe admission requirements. For example, the students to come to that agreement should have a certain minimum requirement of academic standing, also a minimum requirement of English standing, right? As long as those two are fulfilled, then they are being admitted to those programs.
Sir, because we have a lot of teachers out here among us, there's a question from Ashok Singh Rathore, sir, that is this collaboration, any such kind of a collaboration available for postdoctoral program also?
That's a different nature. Postdoctoral is a different nature. I think, when you talk about postdoctoral ones, and I want to highlight this one because specifically Canada, we have a funding mechanism from a federal agency called MITACS, right? MITACS. MITACS allow 3 categories of entities to do up to I believe it's up to 24 weeks of placements. They call MITACS Global Link Research placements, where senior undergraduate students, if they are the 4th or 5th year, graduate students, masters or PhD, or postdocs to work with a foreign institution so that they actually get funding. Like, MyTax provide funding up to $6,000 for this 6,000 Canadian dollars for them to do a research with a partner university. In fact, we signed an exclusive agreement with MyTax before the pandemic starts. We are to engage 200 students from University of Calgary go to partner university, and to bring 100 students from foreign institutions to come to our university for 3 years. But because of pandemic, that could not be properly implemented. But so postdocs under that agreement, and India is an eligible country, right, where the postdocs can come on a short-term assignments of that nature. Otherwise, through postdocs, there are other mechanisms, right? Because through postdocs, you can actually have other mechanisms with professors to professor informal relationships that can happen. Or you can also have a formal relationships of postdoc programs.
Sir, one last question. Arif sir is again asking that when there are such partnerships with the foreign universities for doctoral degree, exactly where does the candidate complete the coursework? And like the supervisors and the guides who all are there. So there is this question by a number of participants.
Right. Typically, coursework, like for example, under PhD Kotutel program, the coursework is mostly completed at the home university, but through an arrangement, again, everything is arrangement. Everything can be prescribed in the agreement. If they want certain courses to be completed at the foreign institutions, you could do that one too. But the key is that they need to agree between the two professors with the two graduate schools about what is the roadmap for the student, right? The coursework has to be done in one university or both universities, right? The research has to be done for both universities for sure, but coursework can be done through that agreement. If they decide that, I don't know what's your PhD requirement. Like for example, in our university, in engineering, for example, we have they take 4 to 6 courses. So for example, if one of my PhD student is doing a PhD Kotutel with a university in India, I can probably decide with my supervisor, with the approval of our deans of the graduate schools, that maybe the first semester 3 courses we take it at the University of Calgary. I would be willing to send the student to India to take the other 3 courses, right? And because that's at the reciprocity that is important, but it all depends on the rules of the university, but it can be easily arranged between the 2 professors with the approval of our graduate schools.
Another question is, I think it's more or less a repeat, but it is coming. That's why I'm asking that if a candidate from India gets shortlisted for a research program and the proposal would be with the Indian education issues, will it be possible to get the funding from the university?
The answer is possible, right? Depending on the nature of the project, whether the professors have the funding. And because again, when we talk about the research, depending on the area, the funding availability could be there. So I think the answer is possible depending on the project.
Sir, in the last one question is from Shrobonti Chattopadhyay. She's asking that what kind of postdoctoral research work are most likely to get the funding?
The answer is it is unlimited depending on the nature, right? Depending on the nature.
Thank you, sir.
At the end of the day, it needs to have the matching, right? Because it's like a marriage. You have to have the matching. The interest of this postdoc and then the interest of the professor. You get the matching. We go matchmaking. Things will go like the marriage. Otherwise, it will be a divorce. So that's a problem. So you have to make the right matching.
Thank you, sir. And my apologies for this technical glitch because I was trying to coordinate two things at a time. So I was not able to, my ears could not coordinate two volumes. So I just mute one and now I'm able to better communicate. And really sorry for just interruption.
No problem, Dr. Anjali. We are all facing such
I
kind
have
of
got the hang
challenges.
of the system now, sir. So no problem from now onwards. So
No. Please don't worry because we are all facing such challenges.
Yes,
it is indeed very difficult. But I want to thank Professor Ruanpura for that wonderfully crisp and precise presentation. Talking about the various programs from types of partnerships to mobility programs, endless possibilities that exist. And I agree with him that the willpower must be there to commit and make that happen within the rules and provisions. A lot of possibilities are there, which needs to be explored. We will also look into opportunities for partnerships with University of Calgary, and we have Center for Canadian Studies to come up with such kind of programs, if at all feasible and possible. And I was especially attracted to your academic industry international learning program, which seems to be a wonderful program, and the global community challenge that you have taken up. And just a word on PhD supervision. Our ordinance allows a foreign co-supervisor to be included for a student, though we don't have any official way of having collaborations. But I have had a student for whom we had a foreign co-supervisor, which is possible because coursework needs to be done in the home university. And I also want to draw attention of a lot of participants to Shastri Indo-Canadian Institute, which we call SIKI, which also allows for a lot of short-term exchange programs and other kinds of fellowships that may be made available even on subjects of mutual interest to both India and Canada. And as far as your collaborative degree model is concerned, I don't know how do we do it at international stage yet, but the new education policy would allow us, the academic bank of credit actually would allow us for a student to take courses from different universities across India and store them in like a bank, which is we call ABC, and then use it at his or her own pace to build a degree. As the program is implemented and pans out, we will see whether it can go to the international stage as well. So thank you very much, Professor Ruanpura, for your time. And I wonder if Professor Yamini, who looks after Center for Canadian Studies, has any comment or anything to say.
Now, unfortunately, I was trying to get Mr. Andrew Lang, helping him to join. He had a problem with the link that was sent to him. So I missed some part of Professor Ruanpura's talk, and I will, of course, listen to it, to the recording.
Yes, Dr. Lang is right here. So Dr. Lang, we welcome you to the session. And Dr. Dayal, maybe you can take it forward.
Thank you, Professor Suman Kundu, sir. And rightly said, Professor Janaka Ruanpura's absolutely lucid presentation gave us a very, very clear view of exactly what could be done now with the new education policy underway. I'm sure there'll be more collaborations and there will be more partnerships. And I think the most interesting part was the pillars that he has mentioned: the reciprocity, respect, ethics, trust, commitment. Sir, we fully agree with you. And we are looking forward to a new trajectory that has been carved out by the government of India. Let's hope in near future we'll have more partnerships. Thank you once again. We are very fortunate to have our second speaker, a very renowned speaker, Professor Andrew Lang, who holds the position of Senior Advisor, Internationalization, Concordia University. Earlier, he was the Director, International Relations, Concordia University, and prior to that, worked as Manager, Student Mobility, again at Concordia University. He was also the coordinator Education Abroad, Ohio State University. He has also held the position of Manager, North American Recruitment, McGill University, and also in the State University of New York. Professor Andrew Lang has his second specialization in French, and he has taught that subject too. His other affiliations include membership to the Board of Advisors, Concordia Institute of Water, Energy and Sustainable Systems, and Concordia Engineering and Commerce Case Competition. It is our proud privilege to have you with us, Professor Andrew Lang. Now, the virtual dais is for you to address our participants. Thank you so much.
Okay, so thank you guys for having me. I trust everyone can hear me, or at least I hope so. If not, just let me know. I'm going to try to share my screen here, so bear with me just a second. Okay. Where is it? Okay, so again, thanks for having me. I appreciate your time, your attention, and I also appreciate your patience as we all try to navigate Zoom. I'm going to talk about, and I hope that this talk will complement my colleague from Calgary's speech as well. I thought at first I wasn't sure exactly what he was going to talk about, but I knew that you were going to talk about the ABC system. I wasn't necessarily that familiar with that system, so I did some research on it. And then, of course, I saw his speech, and I had a pretty good idea of what he would say. There was a lot of the challenges, a lot of the successes, a lot of the challenges that he explained. We face the same things here. We have our own context, our own way of dealing with them, slightly different approaches in some ways, and very similar approaches in many other ways. So just to give you an idea of what I'm going to be talking about, so I'll give a brief introduction. Thank you for the very nice introduction. It's already been done. I'm going to give a very brief overview of Concordia University, where I work here in Montreal. I'm going to explain a bit more why this topic. I'm going to explain the North American system. And yes, it is in quotation marks for a reason. The culture of the system, accreditation, government, professional licensures and organizations and oversight that affect the system, the credit and finances. I think this is often a topic that international universities don't understand. Transfer versus mobility, types of mobility and levels of education. And I think here I really in these slides, I really echo some of the sentiments that my colleague from Calgary expressed, some emerging trends that are affecting our system. And then I will also talk a bit about, how this all comes into play in terms of partnerships. Okay, so again, you know who I am. One thing I always like to reference or explain to people is that yes, I'm both Canadian and American. And I also am from Luxembourg. I've grown up mostly in the United States, in Canada. I was younger in the US, and then my adult life, I pretty much moved to Canada and been here for about the past, 15 years. And then, of course, I've lived here in the past when I went to McGill. But oftentimes, I do explain everything through the paradigm of that. It's not necessarily because of my own background. It's oftentimes because there's confusion between the two systems as well. And a lot of times, the US culture will often take defaults, and people just assume that what works in the US works in Canada, is easily translatable, because in fact, so many things are. But it's not always the case. One of the best examples I get is I get international students who ask if they can apply for Fulbright fellowships to do graduate studies at Concordia. Well, no, you can't, because Fulbright is a US foundation and it's for graduate studies in the United States, not Canada. So that's just one example. And I have the impression people aren't necessarily aware of those differences. So why this topic? Again, as I said, it was inspired by the concept of the ABC system. When I investigated it, I thought, well, this seems to be a very innovative approach for the types of mobile lives that professionals today do live and also have to live. I do think that mobility is basically addressed at two different levels. It's addressed nationally. India, just like Canada, just like the United States, are big countries. In the case of US and Canada, lots of populations. People move around. Professionalism, education is a key to mobility. And how do we basically facilitate that? Because we know that it's going to increase with the 21st century. And there's several different trends that are coming into play right now affecting how we organize education. And I think that there's maybe a bit of a cultural change here that's being driven by maybe even the digital revolution as well. The next reason, the credit is often the building block to successful partnerships. It's also a major obstacle. So to repeat Calgary, the ideas, the bigger picture plans are very easy to come up with, the ideal scenario, but oftentimes when you don't consider the nuts and bolts or the mechanics of an agreement, that's when it suddenly stops working. And unfortunately, I find that one of the biggest challenges to basically nuts and bolts are cultural. It's simply understanding each other's systems, understanding how the various components of our system impact our business practices as well as our culture, and then try to find some sort of common ground there where you can move forward. For us, all forms of successful mobility beyond undergraduate exchanges often rely upon this dynamic, the credit, what it comes down to. How do you count it? How do you add it up? How do you show that all the work has been done and all the bills have been paid is another important aspect for North America. Not all forms of mobility require credits. I will echo what my colleague said. I've found over the past few years that research mobility for graduate students is actually far easier than even undergraduate exchanges. Last, I kind of want to talk about when I look at the facilitation of mobility, of transfer credit, when we try to standardize things, I think there's a real risk for brain drain there that you have to be conscious of. And we'll talk a bit about mobility versus transfer as well, and making sure that you understand the difference between the two. And then last but not least, just to let you know that we struggle with our own system just as much as you probably do, and people around the world struggle with their system. So, in general, there is a system, but everyone does that system differently. And then you have to figure out what the differences are and how they translate into standard practices. And last but not least, I'll tell you that, typically I work for Concordia, but I'm going to basically give you an overview based on the information that I think that you want to hear. So feel free to ask me any questions, and I'll be willing to answer them very honestly. Before I go into the details a little bit, just to go over Concordia University and who we are. So basically, we're an English language university in French-speaking North America. So for those of you who are familiar with Canada, Canada has two official languages, English and French. The province of Quebec in the east is the largest French-speaking region in the country. There's other pockets as well all across the country, but the language of the majority here is French. However, at Concordia, we do teach in English. We do serve primarily, we started out serving the English-speaking community that's a bit of a minority here in Montreal. But that's one of our unique features, is that inside the building, instruction, the university is in English, and of course, when you walk out into the street, everything else switches to French. Most of us who are from here are fully bilingual. The students who come here to study with us do not need to know French. There's no French language requirements. They take the same English language requirements as other North American universities. But of course, knowing French does help them live here, does help them survive. And then also it helps give them access to local internships, et cetera, as well. So we have approximately 52,000 students, which is a large university by Canadian and even American standards. About 20%, a little over 20% of our students represent a little over 150 countries any given year. So it's a very international university overall. We have 4 faculties plus continuing education. So the 4 faculties are arts and science, business, engineering, computer science, fine arts, and together they represent about 300 undergraduate programs and 100 master's and PhD programs. I think one of the most important aspects to know about Concordia is it's a very young university. It was founded in 1974. It has very much a next generation philosophy of teaching. It's always been rooted in the community here, and particularly the local English speaking community. It's grown throughout the years to become an international university. I would say our growth in the past 10 to 15 years has primarily been in the graduate education and research sectors. I've worked here for about 11 years, and when I first started working here, we had about 3,000 graduate students, and now we are well on our way to about 12,000 overall. So it's been an immense period of change being here, but it's also been very interesting to see and to be a part of. Oftentimes it is recognized as one of the top universities under 50 years of age by the Times Higher Education and QS rankings. As well, we just had an announcement this year that the university will be pursuing a new School of Public Health. As you can see in the other full faculties, we don't have medicine, but this will basically aim to foster research in public health matters, as we do have a number of researchers who do work on health as well. Okay, so to go back to our main topic, the North American system. Again, as I pointed out, I put this in quotation marks because the North American system is perhaps a myth. There is no system, so to speak. Standards come from, in the case of Canada, our provincial ministries of education. So what happens in Alberta, where the University of Calgary is always going to be slightly different from how we do things in Quebec versus how they do things in Ontario versus how they do things in New Brunswick, et cetera. And of course, in the US, it goes back to what they call accrediting agencies, which are basically nonprofit organizations that agree to recognize universities who meet their standards for education. The culture, I would say, is pretty standard between the two countries. It certainly represents each other and looks very similar on paper. Terminology is almost the same. Structures are very similar. So for us, it makes sense. We trust it because we know it. It's what's always been there, and it's what has evolved since it's been there as well. So in short, there is no North American system, just culture and acceptance, which again, to me, when I look at something such as the ABC system, to me, I go, I don't know if that would even be possible to get everybody to do the same thing here, even though I do think that time and the modern age is requiring us to think differently. So what is it that you need to know in terms of this system that for us is normal and we expect everybody else to understand and adapt to? In short, it's still based off of the agrarian calendar for the from the 1860s almost. However, we're in the fourth industrial revolution and our lives are not the same. So most people are not farmers nowadays. They're not basing their entire lives off of the schedule of planting, harvest, and in the winter, they have professional jobs in buildings that are pretty much the same regardless of the weather all year round. And they have more time than they've ever had before to pursue education. And they also have more need to pursue it, quite frankly, than ever in the past. The credit that we use today, it results from a time in history around the turn of the 19th, 20th century, when there was a push, mainly in the US, to standardize education, to make or create some sort of a national system that would be transferable amongst the various states at that time. Oddly enough, when you go back and you look at it, the motivation for having done that was not necessarily for the students. It had more to do with faculty workloads and the fact that standards were very different at other institutions. So some faculty members were saying, hey, I do this, but I only get this, or I do this and I only get this. And then, of course, there was little recognition or little transferability between professions. I think it was probably most notable with the profession of lawyer at the time, and perhaps even medicine as well. But lawyer seems to be, the lawyers were the ones who seemed to go after it at the time. There was a foundation at the time whose purpose was to advance higher education amongst the people, to help them gain the skills they needed for the new industrial revolution they were facing. Sounds like just today, called the Carnegie Foundation. They took up the cause, imposing a 120-hour system in order for faculty to benefit from a retirement plan. So in short, the Carnegie Foundation, you've probably heard of the university in Pittsburgh called Carnegie Mellon. It's from the same person who started this foundation. Basically, what they did was they basically required more or less faculty to teach about 3 120-year-long courses to students per year. And then, of course, if universities adhered to those requirements, they could then participate in the faculty retirement system plan. Because one of the other things they realized is that, well, in today's world where there was no social security systems at that point in time, if we're going to have teachers, we have to educate them. We have to make sure that they can teach, that they're spending time doing research and not having to go out and plant food and harvest it. So basically, a retirement system was set up to allow professors to be able to devote their full lives to teaching and research and not have to worry about what they lost from not having a farming income. Today, if you've ever worked in the US, you've probably heard of the organization called TIAA-CREF, which is a very famous private retirement plan system for academics, hospitals, et cetera. It is the old Carnegie Foundation from that time, basically. So in short, we're working with an agricultural calendar in the 21st century, and that is the basis of it. The standards did not last long, as you can see. So the first sort of deviation that came up was the 120-year-long course became a 1-credit, 60-hour or semester course. Because I think that even as time evolved then as it is now, people also realized that we don't have all of our lives to spend years in school, especially at that point in time when life expectancies were a lot less than they are today. So, and of course, people also didn't necessarily want to spend an entire year learning the same thing. So they eventually took the year and divided it into semesters. So the 120-hour year-long course was worth 1 credit, and a 60-hour semester course is worth a half a credit. This system is technically still in use in most, if not all, Ontario schools, as far as I know. However, it's since evolved since then for some reason that I couldn't really find out. For now, we use 3 credits and 6 credits for semester and year-long courses. I would also say that it's very rare to find year-long courses in North American universities right now. That old system just did not last long. And I would say there's maybe even a push to reduce the amount of courses from a semester to even more condensed periods. I've seen other universities do this. They'll do blocks of one course at a time for 6 weeks. You'll do, one course during 6 weeks. The next 6 weeks you start another course. The next 6 weeks you start another course, rather than doing all three at the same time. Our summer sessions are also intensive, so students won't take a full-time course load. They'll often take just one course that is intensive over a period of perhaps 3 to 4 weeks. Oftentimes it's remedial, but at the same time, more of our students are using it, and they're also enjoying this condensed version because it oftentimes gives them more time to pursue other things. As well, I would say the standardization of terminology or nomenclature for degree names was established during this time. So bachelor's degree, 4 years of study, master's degree, 2 years of study, and PhD, 4 years of study. Titles, completion, etc., were more or less standardized. So, when I say 4 years, 2 years, PhD, 4 years, this is the first clue to start paying attention to the credits in the North American system, because we say 4 years. And for us, we would say, well, 4 years is an estimation of what we've come up with for your students to complete a bachelor's degree here. At the end of the day, the amount of time it takes is going to be up to the individual students. If they take less classes, it's going to take them longer. But if they follow the schedule that is suggested and is applied, then they should be able to finish most of their degrees in 4 years. But there's exceptions to that, and we'll get to them. As well, even though I would say that that's sort of the starting point for now. So basically a school year that spans the agricultural calendar for us from September until May, a break during the summertime where nowadays you can do optional learning. In the past, it was never possible. But then, of course, there's regionalisms within the system, and we have a lot of regionalisms. Probably one of the best known ones is within the US system. You've probably noticed that some schools are on what they call a semester or trimester system, and others are on a quarter system. I think California State University is still on a quarter system overall. Instead of having basically, 2 main semesters, they have 3 quarters. They follow the seasons. So you have basically fall quarter, winter quarter, spring quarter, summer quarter, etc. A quarter credit is normally only worth about 0.75 of a normal credit. For us, the calculation's easy, but when you're a foreign university and you don't understand the differences, and again, finding where this is explained or what the rules are is a bit difficult, because you'll find it in different places, and it's all suggestions. So you almost have to judge the reputation of the organization providing the information or the suggestions rather than the information itself. And then, of course, since I'm in Quebec, we have our own big deviation from this scheme that I'll highlight. In the province of Quebec, a bachelor's degree is typically only 3 years rather than 4 years. It doesn't mean that somebody from another system outside can come here and do a bachelor's degree in just 3 years. It's only 3 years because our education system prior to university or prior to post-secondary schooling is based on 13 years of schooling, rather than 12 as is standard in the English-speaking high school system. So basically, our students have gone to school longer as younger people. And typically that first year, what they're exempting them from is what they often call general education requirements. We've already covered those in high school, so the students go directly into their field of study. Now, if you're coming from abroad, basically your system or your application will be assessed upon the system of your country if you have to do 3 or 4 years. Someone who comes from, let's say, Ontario or the United States, British Columbia, who's done the high school system, will basically go for 4 years, and a Quebec student will go for 3 years. And then for other countries, we start looking at their individual systems. So students from France, Germany, UK, for example, only have to do 3 years. Somebody from, let's say, Mexico has to do 4 years. It's all based upon prior education. One thing I will say they didn't touch during this time, and this is very important to understand well, is they didn't touch the marking system or the grading system. So this is something that is extremely different at each and every institution. And the only way to figure it out is to basically read the information that is listed on the transcript itself. So the transcript in North America is the key to understanding the regionalisms. Oftentimes, you'll get on the front side of the paper a list of the marks that the student has earned or the grades the students earned. And on the back side, it'll explain basically what those marks mean. And then as well, how much time the student spent in class or with the professor receiving the instructions. And then from there, you can typically see how that translates into your system. It's something that we all use. When I was doing admissions for North America at McGill University, our standard way of assessing an application for admissions was we took the transcript, no matter where it came from. We took out the marks. We looked for very specific courses we called prerequisites. And we calculated our own GPA for the students based upon the mark they had received, a point system that we had assigned. And then we also placed emphasis on the ranking of the student. So if the student was at the top of the class, middle of the class, or bottom of the class compared to others with his or her marks. Subcultures of the system are also important to understand. And oftentimes you'll probably hear North American universities talk about accreditation. It tends to be American slang, and it's mostly the American universities that will use this term. When you ask somebody, do you want a partnership? Oftentimes the first thing they'll say is, are you accredited, or who credits you? What they mean by that is who recognizes you as a university and who recognizes this degree as being qualified for what it says. So who else says that you can teach business, you can teach engineering, you can teach medicine. In Canada, we don't really have an accreditation system or accrediting system. All of our universities or education goes back to the jurisdiction of provincial governments in Canada. So Ontario, Quebec, New Brunswick, Calgary, British Columbia, etc. And they will grant you the status of being basically a university. In the US, they use those private third-party organizations. Again, the one I'm familiar with was Middle States Accreditation Association. They simply recognized the universities who met the standards. And how they sort of hold the standards is they give you the guidelines of how your programs must be structured. Whenever you create a new program, you submit it to them for approval, disapproval. They say, yes, it's good to go. No, it's not good to go. When it is good to go, typically you have a probation period where they will allow it some time to see how it goes. And then they will conduct audits on the program itself. So making sure the students are doing everything, that they're receiving the education they're supposed to be doing. And they can make suggestions, or they can pull the accreditation for certain programs or for certain institutions if conditions are not being met. So this is oftentimes, whether it be a provincial ministry in Canada or whether it be an accrediting agency in the US, this is often the first quality check and the major one. But there's also other organizations that come into play. And these typically affect organizations that require some sort of a licensure to practice. So in North America, teachers, at least in public schools, often require some sort of license from the state or the government to practice. The same for engineering, accountants, doctors, etc. So in addition to the university, in addition to the Provincial Ministry of Education, you'll also often have a body of professional organizations made up of members who are practicing in the field, who also impose certain requirements for the person to have the title that's associated with it. And these requirements, the requirements they impose can continue after graduation. So they can say, in order to be a lawyer, you have to do this. And after you graduate, you have to continue pursuing updated courses and information as well. Is anything else on here? Yeah, I think one of the most important points to finish on too is that oftentimes you might hear when people immigrate to Canada or the US or any other country, you know, perhaps in their home country they were a doctor, but when they go to the new system, that education is not recognized, at least out of the box, and they have to submit it to either the accreditation agency or, in our case, oftentimes the provincial ministry plus the professional organization in order to get recognized for what they completed abroad and earned abroad as well. Okay. Credit and finances. So this is another important thing, and this is often, I think, the point that most of our partners, when they approach us, they don't understand how our finances work. They don't understand how the funding works. And hopefully this will give you a bit of an idea. I can certainly answer more questions about it. But in short, the credit goes back to the basic block of organization for everything at the university. So the credit basically is keeping track of the student. Okay, it's keeping track of the courses they've completed, the courses they have to complete, and of course their performance in each of them. Now, the outside accrediting agencies, professional organizations will impose the amount of time of study required, the number of courses, and oftentimes the content as well. For the university, it also uses the credit for most of its income revenue generation from for teaching overall, and it's probably the biggest source of revenue for the university, or at least it is for Concordia, more so than research now. Assuring that each credit is accounted for in terms of academic requirements and both revenue counting is often important. As Professor Jonica had explained, public versus private systems in Canada were mostly all public institutions. So that means basically we're receiving some sort of subsidy from our provincial governments. In the US, you have a lot of private colleges, private universities that do not rely upon subsidy of any sort. You'll often see big differences in tuition prices between private universities and public universities overall because of the subsidy. But let's just say that for private institutions, in some ways, they have a bit more flexibility with the credit because they're in control of their own finances. They can substitute and transfer a little more easily sometimes than we can. But of course, when they're giving out, let's say, degrees such as engineering that have a third party there, then oftentimes they still face the same challenges that we do. So in order to be able to engineer, you still have to do the same thing as the student from the public institution. But for other programs in specific where there's no third party intervention, they can be a little more flexible, but it's not based upon the credits, it's more based upon the finances for them overall. So when you are receiving government subsidies, such as the case with Concordia and the other two American universities where I work, they were both public institutions as well. But let's say at Concordia McGill, where I've been here, because we receive government subsidy, the government has a lot of oversight and does a lot of audits on everything that we conduct. So it's not just in terms of academics, they're also making sure that every student who has this degree has basically paid for this degree in some ways. So whether it be, let's say, a Quebec student who gets subsidized, far more, who pays almost nothing per year to go to school compared to other places, they have a contribution to pay each year of about 3,500 Canadian dollars. And then the government will supply about $20,000 Canadian for each of those students per year afterwards. So basically, we have to show that the student has covered their portion, either by paying out of pocket through scholarships, through fellowships, etc., in order for us to get the $20,000 from the government. So it makes us responsible for generating income. It makes us responsible for basically the quality of what we're offering to our clients as well, which is a very North American concept. And it sets another layer of, are you doing things the way you're supposed to be doing, or are you trying to get around the requirements? So oftentimes accreditation is not necessarily as big of a challenge as just paying for the program. So when you ask about fellowships, when you ask about scholarships, and you ask about what to do about the international fees, it's oftentimes it's a challenge for us to do too, because we know that basically there will be a bill generated for that student, that we will have to account for the money that we have to collect from that student to have that student here to the government. And if we're going to give them free money, it basically has to come from somewhere else. There's no such thing as free money in terms of we just say that's paid and waive it and go. If it's not technically paid, the student can't go forward. And then again, in the case of, I would say, Quebec in particular, I'm not sure about Alberta, but our government here has very tight control from the ministry over all other universities. So many universities are afraid to deviate from standards as well. The other thing I think is important to know about transfer credit and credit from other institutions, especially when you're talking about mobility where you want to do joint degree programs and co-supervision, is that all institutions in Canada, the US, accept transfer credit at no charge. So basically, if you did 2 years of study at the University of Delhi, and then you wanted to finish your bachelor's degree at Concordia, more than likely, you would get credit for those 2 years of study. Concordia doesn't charge you for that credit. You've already earned it and dealt with it. But we'll say, okay, so now instead of doing 4 years, you've already done this, you can do 2 years here based on what you've already done and what you know. So everybody does that to a certain extent, but it's not advantageous for universities to accept credit from a pure financial perspective. So the best example I can give you is that from an income source, or a business sense, the challenge for us would basically be a student who's going to be with us for 4 years, paying for 4 years rather than just 2, is financially more interesting than a transfer student. However, if you have space and you need to fill your courses, then of course, transfer schemes and transfer agreements can be advantageous to those programs. A lot of times you can engage in, basically in Canada, you often call them joint degrees, double degrees, etc. In the US, they'll often call them transfer articulation agreements, which I think is a bit more realistic of a term. But in any case, for let's say at Concordia, for programs that are full, and we have a lot of programs that are full, primarily for us, engineering and business are 2 of the most competitive programs. There's, we know we have enough students. We have more students wanting to enter them than we have spaces. So of course, they're going to go with the 4-year student rather than the transfer student, unless there's some other advantage to it. And partnerships do represent advantages. So oftentimes, it's a way to attract brighter students to engage in partnerships with universities abroad, where you know that the student will never be able to come here for whatever reason. A lot of times it has to do with very simple things such as family, distance, etc., not even necessarily finances. I mean, that's I think an obstacle for most people, but there's other obstacles that are just as real too. So there are advantages to basically having, let's say, 2+2 programs, and those advantages are basically student attraction, student attention, creating a greater student pool, etc. So we certainly do do 2+2 and joint and double degrees. At the undergraduate level in specific, it really comes down to space in courses. If we don't have the space, if it's not let's say a program where we're wanting to attract more qualified students, then the likelihood of us doing something like that is going to be very low. And I would say, unfortunately, a lot of people want to do 2+2 with business programs, and that's probably one of the programs that's the most full right now. So there's just really no capacity for us to do it in terms of physical space. At the same time, you know, there's other programs that, you know, do have space needs, and they would be more than willing to basically enter into some sort of agreement or arrangement to the best of their abilities. So the key to, I think, those successful double degree and joint degree relationships, it really comes down to the faculty members and the colleagues that they have in other institutions. Because a lot of times there's an element of trust amongst the faculty members that is lacking in these agreements. So oftentimes the partnership is all very well written on paper, it all looks good, the plans look good, it should work very smoothly. But because of the fact that none of the professors actually know each other, they don't really suggest it or encourage it because, again, they just have no experience. So again, I think that for now, the vehicle that we often try to use in forming these types of agreements is basically faculty connections that will be able to sustain it on both ends, that will signify interest and willingness to work with the students, as well as identify students who are willing to participate in it. But also because of the fact that we don't necessarily know what the space is in their programs or what they're trying to recruit as well. Transfer versus mobility, and I'm getting to the end here. I hope I'm not boring you too much. You know, I think this is important to pay attention to, especially from an Indian perspective, going into North America. So transfer versus mobility. When a North American university talks about transfer, it's often a permanent move, whereas mobility programs are not. Mobility often implies in-course cross-institutional collaboration, whereas transfer often implies enrolling in a degree program for a shorter period of time based on having completed that work elsewhere. Whenever you sign an agreement for a double or joint degree, even though the student will probably remain registered at your institution at the same time to reflect the dual nature of it, the entire time they will be at, let's say, Concordia, for example, we still have to show that they have somehow completed and accounted for all of the credits, all of the funds that were related to that degree. So I can't just simply say, oh, well, we have a degree with the University of Delhi for a joint PhD program, 2 years at Concordia doing the courses here, and then 2 years of supervision back home by a faculty member there, plus a faculty member back at Concordia using Zoom. Sorry, I lost my train of thought here. Sorry, but whenever we do that type of an agreement, from our perspective, the student ends up being our student. We go through the transfer process. We transfer that student. We account for all of the work that you've done. We show that work to our Ministry of Education. Sometimes they have to approve it. Oftentimes they accept our evaluation of it. They don't ask too many questions. And then, of course, we also have to account for the other two years of funding. So if it's a simple transfer, and if it's transfer credit, that's what allows us to not have to charge you for the 2 years that you weren't here, in short. But if we don't do the transfer, then we still have to show that those credits have been accounted for. The bill that gets generated for whether the student's there for 2, 4 years or whatever, the bill itself is going to be the same amount pretty much for all the students in that program. But of course, the fellowships, the scholarships that come in, that's where everybody goes, okay, well, how do I use those in that? And oftentimes the scholarships, the fellowships, they're run by entirely different organizations with different standards or different donors, et cetera. And they cannot be included in those agreements. You can't simply say, we can guarantee funding because we can't guarantee funding on a given year. At least most of us cannot. At the same time, we also know that most graduate students are not going to come if they do not have funding. And we also know that we have to find funding if we want to have graduate students. So there is effort that's put into funding the students. A lot of times the students have to put that effort, have to put effort into it as well. But the money for those fellowships, especially in the case of Canada, they come from a professor's research grants that they get from, national research agencies or, let's say, provincial businesses, etc. So when my colleague from Calgary was saying it's often based upon connections, then what he's saying is that it's very essential for a student to find a professor who is working on something that that student is interested in so that they can work together. The student has to be a complement to the project in order to get funding. So the student has to look at it as an apprenticeship of sorts. So who do I want? Who is doing what I'm interested in? Who would be the best mentor for me? It's not a simple fact of just applying for getting admission and then the university does it for you, unfortunately. So, sorry about something popping up. Getting to the end. So one thing that we've sort of, and I think Jonica mentioned that too. So, research mobility and graduate students have been one area where we made quite a bit of success at Concordia over the past few years, because we noticed, or at least I noticed when I arrived, that the only people who were going abroad were the undergraduate students, and they were taking exchange programs. They weren't paying necessarily tuition back and forth, and they were, just doing courses. It was appropriate for an undergraduate student. I don't expect an undergraduate to be able to do much more than that at this stage in the game. However, for our graduate students, there was a push to make them more international. And, most master's degree students don't have enough time to fit this type of program into their schedule. It's only 2 years. Undergraduates do oftentimes, and then the PhD students have 4 years. They have more time, so they can plan a few more projects in between there. So overall, what we found was that the exchange program, or what worked for the undergraduates, simply did not work for the graduate students. And primarily because at the master's level, the courses were either so technical that they couldn't be transferred or substituted elsewhere, or the faculty didn't want to, or their research time for their thesis was so great, they really had nothing that they could do abroad other than just research. So basically, we sort of started several different programs. We started a mobility bursary for graduate students that basically would allow them, we give them funding to design their own program. We're lucky in the province of Quebec, our provincial government, our provincial Ministry of Education provides us with money for our students to engage in international activities that's specifically earmarked for them. But in short, we allowed them to design their own research project. Typically, it takes place at a university abroad. There's some sort of co-supervision that's taking place to a certain extent. It typically only lasts for about either a summer or a semester, and not much longer than that, but they can go for shorter. And of course, the bursary requirements in terms of, it has to be at another university, it has to be in, support of your thesis or dissertation research. The supervisor has to say, yes, it does, and explain how it will. And then we give the money. So basically, while in the past we were encouraging them to consider exchange programs that didn't work for them, and you had nobody going, after we started this program, we have, on average, a little over 150 graduate students each year leading projects around the world funded by money from the Quebec government. And coincidentally, that mobility bursary money is here for your students if they ever come here afterwards and become students here and wanted to use it as well. It's not tied to just Quebec residents. And then a higher level.
For a second, Andrew, we've overshot our session time. So could you please just speed it up a little bit?
Yeah, so I'll end here, basically, I think, because there's only a couple more. But last but not least, we started a co-supervision of PhDs. It was referred to as co-tutelle in the past, which is a French word. I use co-supervision, which is English, and people seem to understand more. But basically, we've had some success there in the past where we have done 2 + 2 PhDs, where in short, and I think this answers the question that was being asked earlier, the student will come to Concordia. They will do the first 2 years, including the coursework, the PhD coursework at Concordia. They end up spending the entire 4 years with us. They are charged tuition the entire 4 years, but after they've done the coursework and there's no physical reason to be in Montreal, they can go home and be supervised at a partner institution by a PhD person there. It doesn't even necessarily have to be a PhD granting university, because on paper, it still looks as if the Concordia supervisor is the main supervisor for our intents and purposes. We have it written so that all the requirements on our site can be met. The funding is a bit difficult because it's not guaranteed. It's on a person by person basis, but most of them are able to get funding. And then, of course, we've also negotiated with the partner institution to provide some funding for the students once they return there, instead of us providing everything. Where this works great and specific is amongst universities that don't grant PhDs. They have faculty with, let's say, master's degree, and oftentimes the university abroad is the university partner university, or the partner government is sponsoring the student here to study. So that's something we could always talk about more. It's been quite successful for some programs here, etc. Jonica mentioned MyTax. I was going to talk a bit about it. It has money for short-term stays, postdoctorate studies, anything related to innovation, business, etc. If you're not familiar with it, I would certainly explore it. And I can give you more information too if you wanted. So maybe just to sort of wrap up, I think some of the emerging trends that we've seen here are, we are being pushed amongst our own students for more mobility. So your ABC system is going to be interesting for us to look at and see how it works. Here I find I think a lot of people would be quite reluctant to this, just because it's new and it represents change more than anything else. At the same time, though, what I see is the digital era and the mobility era sort of pushing us towards those directions, no matter what. So for me, I look at this effort and I'm quite impressed with it. And I'd be interested in seeing how it plays out, and then also what your individual experiences and judgments of it are. So with that being said, I will quit for now. I've been quite dense. So I thank you for your attention, and I apologize for the connection problems at the very beginning. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for the session and just giving us an insight into the Canadian and the American model. There are a few questions by the participants which I'll be asking. The first question is that what are the merits and demerits of the collaboration that it is there? One of the participants is asking if you can discuss it in brief, sir.
Well, I think the merits of collaboration, it really depends upon the individual program. So it's hard to say that, let's say like the Concordia, I don't know, Delhi collaboration on undergraduate exchanges, it's a wonderful first starting point. It's our younger students. And it is certainly, like the merit for us is that, we have students who know that India is an emerging market. They know that it represents a new part of the world to engage with in ways they haven't in the past. And of course, we're very geographically distant from India and Canada too. So there's a a physical disconnect there as well. And people here are more mobile today. When I first started working 20 years ago, if you would have said to a North American kid, why don't you consider studying in China and India? There would have been just no way, not ready. We're going to go to France or England first. And for many of them, that was probably the first time they ever flew in an airplane. But nowadays we see students here who've already flown, who've already traveled. They've already been to the traditional Western European destinations of North Americans, and they know what that's about, and they know that they need to know more. So we certainly have to have connections to your universities in order to be able to teach our students in the 21st century. But at the same time, from a business perspective, we have to make sure that it is mutually beneficial to both of us in terms of our business operations. So that's why I say, like, a master's degree PhD exchange program, it's probably not going to lead to anything. We can sign them to be nice, but you really have to sit down and be willing to understand the fact that, you know, from our side, if there's no money involved, the students can't come. So we have to understand that as well. And then from your side, you have to understand the credit, the accreditation, and then the business side of it, so that you can help us find solutions, et cetera. But I would say for PhD, for masters, obviously the advantage point and what we're looking for is research. We're looking for research output, and in particular collaborative research output, because we know, being, you know, a small country such as Canada in terms of population, we need other people to be innovative. We're just not enough here.
Sir, another question is that the 4-year degree course that you have just highlighted in your presentation, sir, is it integrated course you're talking about, or is it just for a particular course that we are discussing, sir? And another question, sir, in this line only, that when we are talking about additional 1 year, one of the participant is asking that what exactly, like, why we are having that extra 1 year in the teaching that it is there when we are having these courses abroad.
Okay, I'm not, okay, so the very first question, the 4 years, I think you're asking about the 4-year PhD 2+2, is that it, or the 4-year undergraduate?
Sir, it is the undergraduate that I think it is being highlighted, because that is what it is there in the presentation. So okay, the participant is asking that whether it is the integrated we are talking about, or is it for a particular course we are talking about, sir? Okay,
I think I understand. So in general, the 3-year bachelor's versus the 4-year bachelor's, again, it's general. Most of the degree programs in Quebec are for 3 years. The only ones that last longer are the ones that are often affected by the professional organizations. So engineering is, for example, the best example, because what the professional organization says, the ministry says you have to have 3 years. The professional organization says, no, you need more. You need 4 years because you need to know this, this, and this. You can't do that in 3 years. So engineering, for example, would be 4 years. If you're coming from a high school system or a similar system, it's going to be 5 years for you. But the difference is really depends upon which system you graduated from in secondary education in Quebec, if you go for 3 or 4. So again, if it's high school system, you're going to go for 4 years. And if it's closer to, let's say, the British system, which I think is the Indian system, or is loosely based off of that, they probably only have to go for 3 years overall. But then again, it also depends on those specific programs. And I know engineering is one that's often sought after at Concordia. That's a bit different. Business programs, et cetera, all 3 years. I hope that helps.
Thank you, sir. So I'll just sum up some of the questions that are there. As I pointed out earlier also, that since we have a lot of academicians and teachers in this part as participants, a lot of questions are on the PhD coursework as well as on the postdoctoral work, as being pointed out, sir. A lot of discussion has been done by you, sir. But the thing is, question is again about how to get the funding. What are the selection criteria for the PhD course? And one important question is that how do we approach the teachers from outside universities for the purpose of pursuing such courses, sir?
Okay, I think that's excellent questions. And if I had all of the answers to all of them, I would probably be a very well sought after person. But I think that in general, so for the PhD, so, you know, the requirements are basically set by each individual program. And the requirements, again, if it's all based upon space. So at Concordia, for example, if we know that we can handle, let's say, I don't know, 50 new PhDs in engineering this year, but you have 200 applicants, 300 applicants, well, there's no way to get around that. I mean, they're going to go with the best. And unfortunately, the articulation agreements will often specify that, is that if you meet the conditions for admission and admission is competitive, then this is what you have to do afterwards. But oftentimes I find that this is a big stumbling block because, and I understand why, when you go into a 2+2 program, you want some sort of guarantee that the student is going to start it and actually be able to go there. At the same time, the university here wants to be able to say, well, if you started and you didn't do well, no, you're not going to finish it here. So oftentimes they will say, you know, based upon meeting certain requirements. I don't think I would let that scare me. It does scare other people. It's there as a necessary requirement. And I think from your perspective as teachers is you need to really make sure you're nominating good students for whom this program is a good match. And strong students as well. Sometimes I think there's a disconnect between, you know, the amount of people who want to do something versus the available resources for them to do it. At least here there is. So getting around requirements is going to be hard. So in general, everybody requires basically an English language test, which most of you are going to be exempted from, being from India. TOEFL, IELTS, etc. I think everybody knows what that is. But then in addition, they're going to require that you meet certain standards, equivalent, such as oftentimes, let's say 3.0 GPA. So yes, let's say you have the equivalent of that in your system, check. First requirement, it still doesn't give you a spot. If there's only 50 spots and 300 applicants, then they still have to compete with their test scores and their marks with the other people. So even though it says 3.0, the competition is going to make it go much higher. And that's the part you never know from one year to the next, what that cutoff point is going to be, because it depends on what your applicants are and how high they rank. But at the same time, like I said, I wouldn't necessarily allow those to discourage you. In our case with the 2+2 PhD program, like I said, all of the coursework was done here. So we had little to worry about in terms of credit transferring. Let's say mainly 2 years, 3 years of just research was simply done off-site. You know, in the COVID world, using Zoom, it makes perfect sense now. But let's say, I remember when I started, people were afraid of it. Well, they've been doing it for all their students the past year, regardless of whether they're in India or Montreal. So there's a lot more openness to that type of collaboration now, just because people have practiced it. So I think there will be an opportunity here that's going to open up for that type of education overall. There is space here, but finding it is difficult. And that's that last question of how do you get in contact with the teachers to make these it's not easy to do because it involves just good old-fashioned networking. But I'll tell you what, the successful connections that we have are based upon faculty research connections already. So people who know other people in their fields who pay attention, they go to conferences, they might co-publish, they participate in programs such as MyTax, such as Fulbright, where they themselves are being mobile. That's oftentimes where it takes place. Sometimes, you know, we engage in matchmaking activities, et cetera. Oftentimes our governments will facilitate those types of activities. I've traveled with my colleague who presented here today to Brazil a few years ago on something very similar. Or not Brazil, I think it was Germany, sorry. But in any case, those things don't necessarily work as well as the faculty connections. But again, I've never seen something as an administrator where I can set up a platform and just make faculty members like each other. So I have to say, for us, that's a big challenge. That's a question that we ask ourselves on a daily basis. The best way it happens is just by natural research connections and interests. Artificially, we can do delegations, we can do visits, we can do this, we can do that. But again, it just does not work without that element of existing familiarity already. And I'm not exactly sure how to create that or replicate that in a rather artificial way in order for the purpose of signing agreements. It's not easy. And I think that's the challenge for all of us, is how do we, we've got Zoom, but how do we actually get to know each other?
Thank you, sir. I think this answers almost all the questions of the participants. The question part is over from my side. Now over to Rekha ma'am and Dr. Yamini Gupta.
Rekha ji, would you like to? Is there something wrong with her connection?
Can you hear me now, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am, you are audible and visible now, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. I think we are very highly indebted to both our speakers, Professor Andrew Lang and Professor Janika Ruwanpura, because I think, sir, we did put you at a discomfort. The time zones are so different that it must be very absolutely early morning for you. So thank you once again for taking out time in the wee hours of the morning and being with us and giving us a very, very clear picture of exactly what the students, the researchers can expect if they are planning for a collaboration or if they are planning for a kind of a degree or a PhD program with another university. I'm sure with the new systems coming in place, there will be many foreign universities that the Indian universities will be collaborating with at the university level, as well as I'm sure at the government level. So we are all looking forward to more such ventures, more such projects, and more such collaborations in the future. With that, I would like to thank both our speakers for sparing their valuable time and in being with us. We are also very grateful to Professor Suman Kundu, sir, Director for Center for Canadian Studies, for making sure that the program goes well and spending his entire evening with us. Thank you so much, Professor Kundu. We are equally grateful to Professor Yamini Gupta for being with us and making sure that everything is in place. Ma'am, your contribution in making this program successful are really immense, and we are very grateful to you for that.
Thank you, Dr. Dayal. I know you had a very long day because you were present in the inauguration ceremony as well. Thank you for taking this through. And on behalf of Center of Canadian Studies, I'd like to thank Professor Lang, for providing a detailed picture of how your university functions with regard to mobility and transfers as well. I don't know whether Professor Yamini has a comment or
no, sir,
I wanted to say the same thing.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to thank Andrew for a very comprehensive perspective and covering so many aspects of mobility, transfer, credits, and even the financing bit. And what I found most interesting and something I had never heard of was the link to the agricultural calendar. That was really something very new for me. So thank you very much, Andrew. And I'd like to also point out that Delhi University already has an MOU with Concordia, and the International Relations Office at Concordia, and especially Julio Sevilla, have been cooperating with us and helping us to find very good speakers for our webinars in the past and today, and hopefully in the future also. Thank you.
And to add to it, Dr. Lang, University of Delhi has also established a School of Public Health very recently, as I could see on your presentation. So at some point of time, we may work together. And special thanks to Dr. Anjali as well for taking us through long day. She has been preparing for long and has been in touch with all of us. Thank you very much, Dr. Anjali. And Dr. Dayal, you may take over, I think.
Thank you, sir. With that, I think we wind up this session today. And I'm sure that this kind of a collaboration and venture and more of these efforts will go in this direction of greater partnerships with Concordia, with I'm sure other universities. And I would also like to inform Professor Andrew Lang that even G. St. Mary College at one point of time had an MOU signed with Concordia. Unfortunately, at the undergraduate level, it becomes a little difficult to push students, for these kind of exchange programs. But we are still hoping that in the near future, these things will become more active and more, more of a reality than being just on paper. My thanks to everybody and particularly to Dr. Anjali Gupta. As Professor Suman Kundu has said, Anjali, you've done a yeoman's service in organizing these programs. Your team has done an excellent job. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
And good morning to everyone. Namaskar.
Thank you.